Burn this red gem, and you live one more apocalyptic night. While everyone hoarded gems, I ground them into useless dust. They all called me a fool, but they had no idea this was the key to my survival. Not long before that, a trembling, tearful voice reached my ears.
You're finally awake.
Where am I? Hearing the voice beside me, I turned my head on instinct. Only then did I realize another man in rough clothes, a servant, thin as a skeleton. The next instant, pain struck hard. Countless shards of memory forced their way into my mind, knocking me out again. When I came to, I finally understood my situation. Reborn. This body's owner was also named Chen Fan. In this world, after night falls, countless eerie monsters come to kill. It had been this way for centuries. People called it the eternal night. Only by staying near fiend fire could anyone stay safe. But creating fiend fire is no simple task. Usually, only stations in the wilds have it. To keep fiend fire burning, it needs constant fiendstone. So across the wasteland outside the cities, many families built stations to protect caravans and travelers, while charging them for shelter. The place where I was now was a station owned by my family, but I had been sent here as punishment. As a young master of the Chen family, I was assigned to guard a station in the deadly wasteland. They had not left me a single fiendstone, which meant once this fiend fire went out, my life would end with it. The servant kneeling by my bed had tears all over his face. He rasped,
After such a long journey, you must be tired, young master. I'll stand watch.
I struggled up from the bed, opened the door, and looked at the fire outside. From the memories in my head, 3 pieces of fiendstone lay beneath it. At most, it could burn for 3 days. That was my countdown to death. In that state, how could I possibly sleep? Out here, getting fiendstone meant killing fiends, then digging fiendstone from their bodies. But I was weak, and I had no weapon. How could I kill fiends? After a long silence, I asked, I never asked your name.
Limp Monkey. Young master. My name is Limp Monkey.
Chen Fan glanced at Limp Monkey's right leg. It did look a little lame. All right, I nodded, then looked around the room. Since I was here, my first task was to survive. Go outside and look for travelers. Night is near. They'll need a station to rest at. If you see anyone, call them over. Fiendfire has 3 days. We need to earn some fiendstone. Then I walked up to Limp Monkey and patted his shoulder. In a calm, low voice, I said, if I ever make a comeback, you'll get a share. But if I die, then that is our fate. Limp Monkey paused. A strange light flashed in his eyes. Much of his fear of this station faded. He straightened up and shouted, yes, sir. Then he rushed out of the cabin to look for passing travelers. Outside, Limp Monkey looked around. Wasteland went on. Not a single traveler was in sight. There was a small mound nearby. From there, he could see farther. But night was about to fall. If he failed to return before dark, he would likely lose his life. He did not hesitate for long. He ran hard toward the nearby mound. After Limp Monkey left the cabin, I finally got up and searched the room. I turned the whole cabin upside down. Not one stray fiendstone. I was truly at the end of the road. I sat in the chair. After a long silence, I made up my mind. I had noticed a small mound nearby. The view would be better from there. After sunrise tomorrow, I'd go there for customers. Maybe I could bring in some travelers. Just then, my heart suddenly clenched. I pushed the door open and looked out. Sure enough, a dense darkness was rushing in from the horizon, devouring dusk like a bloodthirsty beast. Once the darkness fell, countless fiends would emerge within it. Neither Limp Monkey nor I had seen this. I tensed. I went to call Limp Monkey in, but he was nowhere outside. After a quick scan, I spotted Limp Monkey in the wilds, staggering toward the cabin, a full 100 meters away. But he had a bad leg. He was painfully slow. Behind Limp Monkey, a man followed, hands at his back, middle-aged, in a green robe. His pace was unhurried. I took a deep breath, grimly checking my body and gauging the time left. Then, without hesitating, I bolted outside toward Limp Monkey. The moment I was a few meters out, that lingering terror surged up again. Fear made me run even faster than usual. When I reached Limp Monkey, there was no time to speak. I hoisted him onto my shoulder. Luckily, he was thin. It was hard, but I managed. Shit, I couldn't help roaring. I glanced toward the horizon at the darkness sweeping in. I carried Limp Monkey and sprinted for the cabin, step by step. Those 100 meters had never felt so far. At last, I felt the solid darkness sweep across my back. I plunged into the golden halo. My body slammed to the ground. I struggled up, gasping, staring in terror at it all. Darkness covered the entire station. The Fiendfire's glow was like a transparent golden eggshell, covering the whole cabin. It formed a golden halo on the ground. Beyond the halo, the darkness was thick and utterly blind. Only eerie sounds came now and then, and in the dark, pale shrieks flickered past. Eternal night fell. Only then did I notice the man behind Limp Monkey, middle-aged, in a green robe, now inside the golden circle, studying the camp. Phew. After I stood and calmed down, I said to the green-robed man, "This is Zhongbei Chen Family Station 37. Outsiders pay 1 fiendstone per night." I could tell he was no ordinary man. How nice. The green-robed man took out a fiendstone, tossed it. He smiled. Seeing you two brings back my old struggles. Then he fell silent. He entered the cabin and shut the door. After he went inside, I forced down my excitement, not just because I'd earned a fiendstone. Rather, my cheat ability was here. You gained 1 fiendstone. Night Lord panel active. Spend fiendstone to upgrade or build. and strengthened domain buildings. I gripped the fiend stone tightly. I knew I now held the key to survival. Without delay, I went to the fiend fire. 3 fiend stones sat in the flames. Then I thrust my arm into the fiend fire's heat. Strangely, my skin and clothes were unharmed. I pulled out one intact fiend stone and held it with the one I'd just earned. I closed my eyes. Then, under Limp Monkey's stunned gaze, the 2 fiend stones in my hand melted fast. Milky powder streamed from my fingers. Before it landed, it became dozens of illusory white threads, floating and solidifying. Seconds later, a steel bear trap fell from the air. Sir, Limp Monkey, who saw it all, said shakily, "Sir, you awakened as an architect. Once Master hears about this, young Master, you'll return at once and the best treatment." No. Light flashed in my eyes as I chuckled. I don't like being controlled. Then I breathed out. I carefully set the level 1 bear trap by the halo. Then I kicked it into the darkness and looked forward to dawn's hall. Soon day broke. At dawn I snapped awake. The halo had faded. The cabin had merged back into the wasteland. Only the campfire burned alone. On the wasteland, a dead fiend lay quietly on the bear trap. Monkey-like. It looked rather small. I barely paused. I strode out. I took the fiends and bear trap and hid them in the hay behind the cabin. I'd dissect it for the fiend stone once the guest left. Best reveal less. 1 hour later, the green-robed man walked out calmly. He looked at me. He waved his map and smiled. There is another station nearby with better conditions than yours. It also costs just 1 fiend stone. Yet I still chose your station yesterday. Do you know why? Before I could answer, he stretched lazily. Because seeing you and your man fight for guests moved me. Like I once was, so I felt a little merciful. Then he tossed a map into my arms. This is the area's fiend hide map. It updates wasteland data at every fiend fire in real time. In 3 months, I'll pass this way again. If you are still alive then, I'll truly help you once. With that, the green-robed man did not linger. Hands clasped behind his back, he strode toward a low mound nearby. Sir, I gripped the hide map in my hand. I shouted after his departing figure, I'm in your debt. May I have your name? I will repay you someday. The man gave no reply. He only waved without looking back. His figure faded into the wasteland. Poof! I looked down at the hide map. I murmured, that man really lived as he pleases. Once I was sure he was gone, I hurried to the hay behind the cabin. I took out the level 1 bear trap and the fiends caught last night. Master, it's a monkey head fiend. A common low-level fiend. Usually level 1 to 3. Low danger. Its trait is extreme speed. Fiend stones in back. I looked at Limp Monkey in surprise. How do you know that? When I was assigned to Young Master, all servants trained for 3 years. That included private lessons. They taught us much about fiends. I see. I looked at the map thoughtfully. A hazy memory surfaced. I remember now. The family gave you 1 fiend stone then. So you could absorb it and become a cultivator. Yes. Limp Monkey's voice grew softer. After training ended, every servant received 1 fiend stone. A lucky few became special cultivators. The patriarch took them. I got no more fiend stones. My body was no different from before. I bore the title, but I had no cultivator aura at all. I nodded and said nothing more. I remember too. At first, though my family targeted me, it was not too obvious. But when I turned 16, I absorbed a fiend stone and still awakened no special cultivator gift. Even the hopeful patriarch gave up on me completely. After that, my status collapsed. Soon he rolled his sleeves. He took a small knife from his chest. He cut open the fiends and pulled out a bloody fiend stone. He wiped it clean and handed it to me. Zush! Plus the fiend fire's 2 fiend stones. I had 3 fiend stones in all. I carried a chair out of the cabin. I sat by fiend fire, planning how to earn more fiend stone. My eyes settled on the bear trap. Soon I had an idea. Monkey. I looked up at Limp Monkey. Can you braid rope from dry grass? Yes, you're a genius. I could not help sighing. Your task today is to braid ropes from the dry grass behind the cabin. Not too long. 3 or 4. I'll go gather intel, then sleep during the day. We move tonight. Got it. Limp Monkey answered crisply. He never asked what the ropes were for. After assigning Limp Monkey his task, I left camp with the fiend hide map and headed for the nearest fiend fire. I wanted to see the other stations. The problem before me now was not just a lack of fiend stone. Food and water were short too. About 30 minutes later, I saw the nearest fiend fire camp. I lay flat on cracked wasteland. I watched carefully. Likely level 2. Only that could fit so many cabins. It had no walls, but it did have cleared farmland. 4 people. I watched and murmured to myself, those 4 all seem to belong to this camp. No passers-by. After a while, I quietly withdrew and headed back to my own camp. But not long after I returned, 2 figures appeared on a distant slope and strode toward our camp. When they drew near, the middle-aged man in front looked at me oddly and cupped his fist. You must be from Zhang Beichen family, the station master of Station 37. I am the station master of Chuhe Wang family Station 17. Wang Kui. A smile spread across my face. I cupped my fist in return. Chief Wang. I am Chen Fan. I knew them. They were from the station I had just scouted. I just did not know why they had come to me. Wang Kui coughed, then spoke tentatively. Chief Chen, as far as I know, your Chen family's Station 37 has been abandoned for over a month. Why reopen it so suddenly? Few travelers pass this route, and little gain. Did you hear something? Our 2 families may not be close, but out here, we should work together. If a fiend tide breaks out, neither of us will survive. I did not answer right away. I knew Wang Kui's idea. He was overthinking it. But before I could speak, the man behind Wang Kui spoke in shock. Shen Fan, the Zhang Beichen bastard. I nodded without expression. Yes, slap. Realization flashed in Wang Kui's eyes. He turned and feigned anger at his men. Then he forced a helpless smile. My man doesn't know better. I've been in the wasteland too long and lost touch with outside affairs. My station still needs me in charge. I must go. Then he left, taking his man with him. Wasteland. Wang Kui walked over the cracked earth with his man. He frowned slightly and asked, "What exactly is Chen Fan's background? Tell me everything." Meanwhile, at Zhongbei Chen Family Station 37, Limp Monkey tucked the knife back into his coat. He watched Wang Kui and his man leave, rasped, "Young master, they probably think we'll steal their business. They may mean trouble. Should we strike first?" No, I shook my head and said no more. I only took the hemp rope from Limp Monkey and tied it on. Wait for dark. Then I went back inside to sleep. Limp Monkey stayed outside on watch so we could sleep in turns. Master. Once awake, I stepped outside and saw a rough, bronze-skinned strongman. He was burly. He stood outside the camp, pulling a handcart, grinning and waving at me. He was the man who had followed Wang Kui earlier. Before I could speak, the strongman explained first. "Station Master Chen, before your station was abandoned, Station Master Wang borrowed some food and water from your camp. Then your Chen family pulled out, and he never had the chance to repay it. Now that your Chen family has reopened this station, he sent me right away to return it. Well, I won't stay long. There is still work at the station." After the strongman left, Limp Monkey walked warily to the handcart. There were 2 full vats. One was filled with clean water. The other was filled with food. Gulp. Limp Monkey swallowed despite himself. Then he said firmly, "Young master, it must be poisoned." "It isn't poisoned." I shook my head. The moment he learned who I was, he knew I would not live long. There was no need to poison me and bring trouble on himself. "It is clean." Limp Monkey frowned, unconvinced. So he really returned what he owed? Is Wang Kui that honorable? Of course not. I picked up 5 fiend stones from the bottom of the vat. I waved them in my hand and suddenly laughed. It's an investment. He thinks I might not die. He is betting on my future. I patted Limp Monkey on the head. "Go inside and get some sleep. I'll keep watch now." Yes. After Limp Monkey went inside, I began taking stock of the camp's assets. I have to admit, this angel investment came just in time. I would not need to worry about food for a while, and those 5 fiend stones would help me a great deal. With these 5 fiend stones, I now had 6 fiend stones in total. I looked at the 5 basic buildings on the Eternal Night Lord panel. 5 basic buildings can currently be built. Level 1 wall. Can withstand attacks from low-level fiends. Cost to build, 10 fiend stones per meter. Level 1 farmland. Greatly shortens crop growth time. 1 plot costs 2 fiend stone. Level 1 arrow tower. Damages low-level fiends. Costs 10 fiend stone to craft. Level 1 wooden hut. Good against cold and wind. Costs 2 fiend stone to craft. Level 1 sacrificial tower. Grants special resources. Costs 20 fiend stone to craft. City wall. That's steep. No way I can afford it yet. After thinking it over, with my only 6 fiend stone, I crafted 3 level 1 bear trap units. With that, I now had 4 bear trap units. The price was going broke. Not 1 fiend stone left. Next, we await eternal night and get to work. Soon, deep darkness covered everything. The light from the fiend fire covered us like an eggshell. That rustling filled my ears again. Countless fiends had come with eternal night. "Monkey." I looked a little tense. I whispered, "I'll pull the rope. You go for the kill. Stay safe." "Got it." Limp Monkey was nervous too. At last, after half an hour, one hemp rope suddenly twitched. It was slight, but I noticed it right away. I took a deep breath, gripped the rope with both hands, and slowly pulled back the bear trap in the dark. As the bear trap entered the light, one of the monkey-like fiends was pulled in. A monkey head fiend. It was still alive. It struggled hard, but it could not break free. Rip. Limp Monkey thrust his spear at once. It hit its mouth. He yanked it out and stabbed again. Soon the monkey head fiend stopped breathing. It fell. Nice work. I let out a long breath. So far, things were going smoothly. We might get over 10 fiend stone tonight. This was a great start. Tomorrow, I could craft more bear trap units and keep snowballing. Soon I could escape this resource shortage. Loot it. I tossed the bear trap back into the night and ordered. The fiend stone we dig out now can still make more bear trap units. We had no spare hemp rope, but we could still use it once tonight. Every little bit counts. For the rest, I watched those hemp ropes, like an angler, while thinking through my next plan. Manpower was a big problem. So far, I only had Limp Monkey. That was not enough. With 1 or 2 more people, they could weave hemp rope for me now. Soon, a fiend stone came from its head. It lay quietly on the ground. Just then, another hemp rope began to twitch. I sprang up from my chair and yanked the rope hard. Another monkey head fiend was dragged into camp. Limp Monkey, already waiting, struck again. The 2 of us now had some rhythm. 1 more fiend stone. Only this time, something extra dropped. Once it died, a white glowing lump came from its mouth, like a handful of gravel. "Master." Limp Monkey's eyes lit up. "Fiend materials. After some fiends are killed, their remains form fiend materials. But this doesn't look like them. The others drop nothing like it. It's a relic." "A relic? It should be a relic." Very few fiends carry special relics, but to know what a relic is, ask a market appraiser. I said nothing. I picked up the gravel-like lump. It was wrapped in a nearly clear film, like fish roe. A panel slowly appeared before me. Relic name, monkey head mushroom seeds. Relic grade, white. Relic effect, must be planted in farmland. Matures in 3 days. Once mature, it improves the body when eaten. I nodded thoughtfully. A seed type. Need an appraiser? The panel spells it out. I know what this is. I tucked the seeds into my coat. I took the fiendstone, dug from this monkey head fiend. Once I had exactly 2, I crafted another bear trap unit, tossed it into the dark and said, work first. Time passed bit by bit. Suddenly, the thick, tar-like darkness quickly receded. Eternal night was over. The morning sun covered the world again. Daylight had come. So, I let out a long breath. I rubbed my tired eyes. After a long night, I was worn out too. This was hard labor, yet in my weary eyes was a smile I could barely hide. Last night was a rich haul. I killed 37 monkey head fiend in all. I spent 2 fiendstone on bear trap. That left me with 35 fiendstone. The camp's total assets were 5 bear trap and 35 fiendstone. Go sleep. I waved Limp Monkey inside to rest. I did not invest more in bear trap. I was not sure there were more nearby. Early on hauls were good. Something kept taking the bait, but later, few came. It took ages to catch one. Maybe there were only so many monkey head fiend nearby, or fiends prefer moving before midnight. Just then, I suddenly frowned and looked outside. A lone bear trap sat out in the wasteland. A strand of white monkey hair was caught in it. It fell during the escape. Monkey head fiend can't escape bear trap. Unless... As I stepped forward to retrieve the bear trap, I rubbed the hair between my fingers. It was harder than normal hair. Could it be their pack leader? It sensed last night's deaths and came to check the area? Then will it come again tonight? At that thought, my eyes narrowed slightly. The man in green had been clear when he left. Aside from a few weak fiends, most fiends only hate fiend fire and avoid it. They can get close. If I am right, tonight could bring a crisis. I must prepare in advance. I looked at Evernight Lord. At one basic building on the panel, LVO1 tower, deals some damage to low-level fiends. Requires 10 fiendstone to build. This is it. I placed 10 fiendstone on the ground and slowly closed my eyes. I confirmed the build mentally. Then the 10 fiendstone on the ground shattered at once. They turned into milky white powder and rose. At the same time, a phantom arrow tower made of white lines appeared in the air. As the powder poured into the phantom, the unreal arrow tower slowly became solid and ancient. With a thought, the arrow tower settled firmly near the fiend fire, right at the center of the camp. Building name, Arrow Tower. Building grade, white. Building level, 1. Building effect, deals some damage to low-level fiends. Automatically attacks fiends within fiend fire range. Upgrade to level 2 costs 20 fiendstone. Not bad. With it around, made me feel much safer, but I hesitated a little. The thing that escaped bear trap had to be a big one. Can this level 1 arrow tower really hold it off? I still have 25 fiendstone. Upgrade to level 2 first? After thinking it over, I decided, better overkill than not enough. If the arrow tower is too weak, whatever fiendstone I save, I can't spend it. Then, the 20 fiendstone on the ground shattered at once at my thought. They became milky white powder and flowed into the arrow tower. Right after that, a panel popped up before me. Arrow tower upgraded to level 2. Please choose an upgrade path. 1. Add a repeating crossbow to the tower top. 2. Increase crossbow power. 3. Increase crossbow fire rate. As I looked at the panel, surprise flashed in my eyes. I did not expect buildings to have upgrade paths. After weighing it, I chose the simplest option. More power. After I confirmed it, the arrow tower before me began to change. The crossbow bolt on top grew a little larger. Nice. I nodded in satisfaction. I set 1 fiendstone into the slot at the base. A level 2 arrow tower felt much safer. After finishing all that, I finally went to sleep in peace. A moment later, noise outside jolted me awake. I stepped outside and saw Limp Monkey in the camp, spear in hand, staring warily at a mother and daughter. What? I stretched lazily. Master. Limp Monkey hurried over with a limp. They don't have a fiendstone, but they're asking to stay tonight. Outside the camp, the ragged middle-aged woman dropped to her knees on the wasteland when she saw me. We were a family of 3, but my husband was killed by bandits on the way. They took all our money too. It will be dark soon. Please, sir, have mercy. Take us in for the night. Behind the woman stood a graceful young girl, clutching her mother's sleeve, her eyes full of fear of the coming dark. She looked utterly pitiful. Good. I glanced at the setting sun, then looked down at their feet and suddenly smiled. I took the spear from Limp Monkey. Without pause, I thrust it out. It struck her head dead on. Blood sprayed out. Then I yanked it free and rushed from the camp. In a few strides, I caught up to the girl fleeing in panic. Threw her back. Clean and decisive. At dusk, I walked back into camp with the spear. I raised the stone in my hand, glowing white, and looked at Limp Monkey. Then I smiled. Next time you see one, don't drive it off. Kill it on the spot. Otherwise we'd have missed this chance. Behind me, their bodies shrank fast after death, turning into fiends smaller than a monkey head fiend, like dead infants. Ghastly. The white glowing stone in my hand had fallen from the girl's mouth. A rare treasure. Last night, I killed 37 of the monkey head fiend for 1 treasure. Today, killing this pair dropped 1 too. Their drop rate is much higher. They must have been imposter fiends. They aren't strong. When night is about to fall, they disguise themselves as humans to enter camp. Once exposed, they're easy to kill. Of course, imposter fiends have no choice. Holding a fiendstone would burn them. Got it. Limp Monkey scratched his head, ashamed. You woke just in time, or we would have missed this chance. Enough. You slept plenty today, right? There may be a hard fight tonight. Come eat something. You'll need the strength. The instant the sun set, darkness surged from the horizon like a tide. Eternal night fell. This was already the third night we master and servant had spent on the wasteland. Compared to the first two, we felt much safer tonight. Limp Monkey sat by the campfire, biting into a dry cake, while stroking the sturdy arrow tower beside him. His eyes shone. I lowered my head and looked at the stone from the imposter fiend. This was a fine treasure. Rare treasure name, building duplication stone. Rare treasure grade, white. Effect, works on any building at level 2 or below, to create an identical copy. I did not think too much. I pressed the stone onto the arrow tower beside me. Then, a new arrow tower's phantom formed in the air, then settled on the other side of the fire. Limp Monkey watched it happen, and stood frozen, speechless for a long while. But just then, the darkness outside the camp seemed to boil. Churning. Sharp screams could be heard clearly. Here, I shot to my feet and ducked into its supports. I looked around. Narrowing my eyes, I whispered, "Something big is coming. Get ready." My breathing began to quicken. The next instant, scream! A shrill, piercing cry rang out from the night outside the camp. Then a creature nearly 2 meters tall appeared. A massive monkey head fiend rushed from the dark and charged into camp. This was the first time I'd seen fiends charge straight into a fiendfire camp. The black mist around it pressed so hard I held my breath. Humans seemed tiny before such fiends. At the same time, the two arrow towers by the fiendfire turned their ballistae as one, aiming at the giant monkey head fiend. Each tower's fiendstone flashed with a faint white light. Then, whiz! Sharp whistles split the night, ringing in our ears. Several bolts shot out and sank into the giant monkey head fiend. They were not fast, but deadly accurate. Badly wounded, the monkey head fiend forgot revenge. Screaming in agony, it bolted out of the camp and vanished into the dark. It ran off. I poked my head out from behind the tower and looked into the still darkness beyond camp. Regret flickered in my eyes. What a shame. It would have dropped good loot. Are you hurt? I looked at Limp Monkey, spear in hand. No. Limp Monkey shook his head, still panting in fear. Master, that fiend was at least level 3. Without those towers, we might have died here today. Get to work. I said nothing more. I had Limp Monkey toss the bear trap into the dark and start tonight's hunt. Since that big one was driven off, we could work as usual tonight. The towers can only hit fiends within fiendfire range. Good for defense, but not so much for attacking. About 2 hours later, I frowned. Not one bear trap had moved. No monkey head fiends. Something felt wrong. Maybe the nearby monkey head fiends were all dead, or that big one had called them away. I had just made 5 bear trap units. Before I began, no fiends remained. Only 3 remained. If I did not earn more fiendstone, the fiendfire would not last. As the night faded, at dawn, I was half asleep when Limp Monkey woke me up. What is it? I rolled out of bed, rubbed my eyes, and left the cabin. But the next moment, I stepped outside and broke into a grin. About a dozen meters from the camp, last night's monkey head fiend lay quietly on the ground. Already dead. It had clearly fled wounded into the dark, then collapsed before getting far. Several glowing items lay scattered beside it. If I was right, they were treasures dropped by the monkey head fiend. Limp Monkey stood outside, calling excitedly. Coming. I could not stop grinning. I strode to the monkey head fiend and stuffed the 2 glowing items into my coat. I'll dig them. Limp Monkey looked thrilled. He took the knife off the wooden shaft and cut it open. Common low-level fiends hold only 1 fiendstone. But this monkey head fiend clearly held more. After he cut its brain, he kept using the knife to dig fiendstone from the flesh. Soon, all the fiendstone lay on the ground. A full 17 pieces. With my 3 fiendstone, I now had 20 fiendstone. Not bad. I nodded in satisfaction. I put away the monkey head fiend's corpse in the hay behind the cabin, with the other monkey head fiend corpses. It might be useful later. Only then did I look at the 2 glowing treasures. I hoped one could expand my land, or keep producing fiendstone. I was short on space now. Level 1 fiendfire covers a 10-meter diameter. Within my fiendfire range, with towers, cabin, fiendfire, there was no room left for a field. If a field is outside fiendfire range, once night falls, fiends will ruin it completely. I looked at the first treasure. Like the mushroom seed, it was a seed treasure, wrapped in a thin film. Treasure name, Fiendstone Vein Seed. Treasure grade, white. Effect, must be planted in a field. Matures in 3 days. Produces fiendstone when mature. Requires fiends' corpses as fertilizer. Good stuff. I smiled. Even if the other treasure was trash, this one alone made it worth it. I had to build a field today. Good thing I kept those monkey head fiend corpses. They could serve as fertilizer now. I checked the other one. Treasure name, Godslayer Spear. Treasure grade, white. Effect, deals solid damage to low-level fiends. Can resize. Not bad. With a thought, the tiny spear in my hand grew at once, becoming an imposing full-size spear. Size shifting at will meant it could only switch between normal and miniature. It could not become dozens of meters long, so it was only half-size shifting. It's yours. I tossed the spear into Limp Monkey's arms. Then I strode toward the fiendfire. Back in camp, I took a deep breath, placed 20 fiendstone on the ground, and slowly closed my eyes. Then, 10 fiendstone on the ground shattered instantly, turning into milky white powder that flowed into the fiendfire at camp center. A panel slowly appeared before me. Fiend Fire has reached level 2. Safe range increased to a 20-meter diameter. Deterrence against fiends has increased. Please choose an upgrade path. 1. Safe range increases to 30 meters. 2. Deterrence against fiends increases slightly. 3. Defensive buildings in camp consume slightly less on activation. I narrowed my eyes. I had 3 upgrade paths again. After a brief thought, I chose the third path. With 2 level 2 arrow towers, I had some confidence in my camp's safety now. I did not need stronger fiend fire deterrence yet. As for the first path, it was useful, but in the long run, the third path clearly offered the best return. After I made my choice, the fiend fire slowly began to change. Its base looked more ancient, and 2 milky white energy veins spread across the ground, like blood vessels connecting to the bases of the 2 level 2 arrow towers. Huh, I let out a soft breath. My camp now spanned 20 meters across. That was enough for now. Then I spent 2 more fiendstone to make a field, placing it at the camp's edge. Monkey. I looked toward Limp Monkey, crouched by the fiend fire, and shouted, "Get moving! Move the monkey head fiend corpses from behind the cabin. Bury them in the field." Yes, sir. Once all the fiend corpses were buried, it was already noon. I pulled out lion's mane seeds and fiendstone vein seeds. Then I buried them one by one. Later, I stood there, wiping sweat from my brow. Farming is hard work too. I had 17 lion's mane seeds and 12 fiendstone vein seeds. Who knows how much they will yield? But this did remind me of something. I will get more and more seeds later. Each seed needs different conditions. Take lion's mane seeds, for example. No fiend corpses needed, but fiendstone vein seeds do. As the farmland grows, Limp Monkey and I cannot handle it alone. I need to build a force. I need farmhands, and tend this land properly. Still, I glanced at Limp Monkey nearby. With Godslayer Spear, loyal, hard-working men like him are rare. Master, Limp Monkey had finished as well. He trotted over with a grin. I found a few seeds under the bed earlier. I could not tell what crop they were, so I buried them in a corner of the field. Maybe they are fruit tree seeds. Then we will have fruit to eat. I smiled but said nothing. They are probably wheat seeds. After so long they may not even sprout. But I would not dampen Limp Monkey's spirits. Just then, Chief Chen, a startled voice rang in my ear. Station Master Wang had arrived with his men at the edge of camp. It has only been 2 days, right? What's this? Wang Kui stood inside the camp, staring at the clearly level 2 fiend fire and the 2 menacing arrow towers. His eyes were full of confusion. What is going on? Wasn't I the Chen bastard, sent to the wasteland to die? What are these towers? 2-2. But soon, understanding flashed deep in Wang Kui's eyes. Now it all made sense. Chen Fan's mother did leave him a trump card, and it was likely tied to an architect. If that was true, the Chen family would regret this bitterly. His mind raced, but his face showed only helplessness. Chief Chen, you really had me fooled. But this... I looked behind Wang Kui at the 2 jars and smiled. Here to return things again? My former station master borrowed plenty from you. Chief Chen, please stop teasing me. Wang Kui turned away, embarrassed. Looks like my rare bit of kindness was for nothing. Not at all. I shook my head and said softly to Wang Kui, I will remember your kindness. What you sent last time helped me greatly. If I get the chance, I'll repay you. Good. Wang Kui could not hide his excitement. I'll head back now. Need anything, send for me. He left the handcar behind and led his men back to his station. Even his steps grew light. He bet right this time I had likely become an architect. 5 fiendstone for an architect's favor. Was there any better deal? An architect, huh? Young master. Limp Monkey looked at the jars on the cart. They brought another jar of water and some food. Good. I narrowed my eyes and said softly, though there was little smile on my face. I did not want to reveal I was an architect yet, but those 2 level 2 arrow towers were hard to hide. It would come out sooner or later. If Station Master Wang reports it, I will face real pressure. I need to strengthen the camp quickly. Then even if pressure comes, I can hold out. For now, Station Master Wang seems smart enough. I hope he sees the long-term gain and is not blinded by short-term profit. What I did not know was, on their way back, Station Master Wang and his man had decided already. Then I looked toward the camp's edge, at the newly planted field. The crops in this field would not mature for 3 days. There was no rushing it. I still had 8 fiendstone left, which was not enough. After thinking for a moment, I decided to take the initiative. I waved for Limp Monkey to follow. I pocketed the remaining fiendstone and left the station, pulling the cart deeper into the wasteland. After about 2 hours, I reached a desolate no man's land. I took out the fiend-hide map and checked my location. This will do. I slowly closed my eyes. I took out 3 fiendstone and tossed them up. In an instant, the 3 fiendstone turned into milky white powder. Then the image of a fiend fire slowly appeared. As the powder flowed into the image, it gradually became solid. I grabbed a handful of dry grass and tossed it in. Only then did the image fully solidify. An ancient fiend fire settled on the ground. Young master. Limp Monkey watched from the side, his breathing growing quick. His eyes were full of disbelief. He remembered fiend fire required many materials. How did young master build it with just a handful of dry grass? And it only cost 3 fiendstone. After all, a fiend fire at the market sells for around 60 fiendstone. I ignored Limp Monkey and put a finger in my mouth, scraped blood from my gum into the fiend fire. A blood bond. Then this area became my base. Not tonight. I pulled a bear trap from the cart. As I got to work, I said, "We work here tonight." Got it. Limp Monkey nodded, eyes gleaming. He set bear trap around camp. Night soon fell. Utter darkness swallowed the world. Only fiend fire lit the dark. But this makeshift camp had no buildings but the fiend fire. I curled on the ground, my face pale from the cold. Tonight was freezing, but I had only 3 fiendstone left. I hated spending 2 fiendstone on a cabin. Base fiend fire had 1 night left. Those 3 fiendstone were my last safety net. Just then, an icy raindrop hit my hand. I froze, and looked up into ink-black darkness. In the blink of an eye, the drizzle turned into a downpour. It kept growing heavier. No more hesitation. I tossed 2 fiendstone into the air. A cabin's silhouette solidified and landed in camp. Limp Monkey, inside. As I rushed into the cabin, I looked at him in the rain, still staring at the ropes. With just cold and wind tonight, we might not freeze to death. But with this downpour, we'd die of cold tonight. Still, if we caught nothing tonight, this attempt would end in failure. At the cabin door, watching the ropes in camp lie dead in the downpour, I sighed in silence. Master, Limp Monkey stood by, spear in hand. He wanted to, but could do nothing. Fine, I shook my head. We'll find a way. I'll beg Station Master Wang tomorrow. Just then it moved. It moved. Limp Monkey cried out beside me. I looked over at once. A hemp rope was thrashing on the ground. My face lit up. Before I could move, the other 4 ropes thrashed too. Quick, I rushed into the rain, grabbed a rope and yanked hard. A bear trap slid into camp. It held a grotesque creature, one of the fiends, like a huge pupa. Limp Monkey charged out too, like Runtu spearing a badger. Spear raised as he leapt at its head. 1 thrust. Nice work. No time for dissection. I pulled the rest of the ropes, dragging bear trap in from the dark. All were maggot-like fiends. Limp Monkey took up his spear. 1 thrust each. 2 hours later, Limp Monkey and I returned to the cabin. We'd had a good haul in that hour. Prey kept taking the bait, but nearby fiends seemed to be thinning fast. 2 incense sticks had passed, with no fiends hitting a bear trap. I could finally clean up so I wouldn't catch cold. Monkey, you know more. What kind of fiends is this? Never. He frowned, then shook his head. In the fiends guide our teacher had, I never saw this kind. Unless, the wasteland had none before. They only came recently. I narrowed my eyes and said nothing. For now, aside from looking disgusting, these fiends showed nothing special. But tonight's operation confirmed one of my guesses. The fiends in the wasteland may truly have their own territories. My base was in Monkey Head Fiend territory. After he killed the Monkey Head Fiend, no other fiends were nearby. Another hour passed. Still, no fiends hit the traps. In the days, we lay on the bed and drifted off. Until daybreak. I opened my eyes, groggy. I opened it. Darkness had faded, but the rain hadn't eased. Let's go. I looked at Limp Monkey, busy in the rain. He had woken up at some point and was digging fiendstone from last night's fiends into a basket. Then he stacked the bodies on the cart. I looked at the cart piled with fiends, and thought, a man like him saves me trouble. In the rain, and with such a heavy cart, it took us nearly 4 hours to reach camp. When we arrived, Wang Kui and his man were outside. I was puzzled, and cupped my fists with a smile. Chief Wang, I went out on business, and was away. Why are you here? Wang Kui, in the rain, looked past me at the cart of fiends' corpses. Shock flashed in his eyes. After a long pause, he recalled why he'd come. Chief Chen, this is urgent. Briefly, the rainy season came a month early. Once it begins, the wasteland is sealed off for 5 months. All stations in the wasteland are abandoned, no one passes. They reopen only in spring. I frowned slightly. I vaguely sensed this storm was unusual. Chief Wang, inside, I'm not sure I follow. Wang Kui paused. He hadn't expected me to know nothing. Then he came in and explained. Whenever rain season hits the wasteland, fiends grow more active and violent. Even near fiend fire, you aren't truly safe. Wang Kui had sent the Wang family a message talisman, asking them to evacuate us early. But unexpectedly, the family claimed they couldn't help and left Wang Kui in the wasteland. Out of options, Wang Kui had only my 2 towers to count on. Chief Chen, could you upgrade your 2 arrow towers 1 more level? If they reach level 3, we might still have a chance. I stood there, expressionless. After a long pause, I spoke again. Since you've put your hopes in me, I'll strengthen this camp as much as I can and make sure we survive. But, one condition. I need your resources and your help. No problem. Wang Kui did not hesitate. He took out his pouch. There are 137 pieces of fiendstone here. It's all I've saved over the years. All yours, sir. Little Chu and I will obey you from now on. No objections. We leave the Wang family now. If we live until spring, we're yours, young master. Me too. Little Chu hurriedly took out his pouch. I don't have much saved. Only 17 pieces. Good. I took out the fiend hide map, glanced at it and gave orders. I have 2 tasks for you. First, back to camp. Bring everything useful here. Second, if Wang won't evacuate you, others nearby can't leave either. Get to the nearby stations fast. Bring their people and resources here. Tell them we can shelter them here. We'll need plenty of hands. They can all work for us, but don't reveal too much. Don't force them. Yes. Wang Kui nodded firmly. He said nothing more. Then he and Little Chu rushed back through the rain. It came too suddenly. He'd wanted to join me. He only needed a chance. He never expected it so soon. But if we survive this, then for him, it may be a blessing. I watched them hurry away through the rain. I slowly closed my eyes. To me, this rainy season is both a chance and a crisis. If I can endure it, for 6 months, no one can hinder my growth. Then, I can build enough strength to return to Chen family and take what's mine. I looked at the 2 pouches on the floor. Wang Kui and Little Chu gave me 154 pieces of fiendstone. With my current 46 pieces, I now had exactly 200 pieces of fiendstone. I had two choices before me. Spend 100 pieces of fiendstone to raise both level 2 arrow towers to level 3, or save up 320 pieces of fiendstone and build a 32-meter circular wall. A wall would block fiends entering camp so the towers could keep firing and not be crushed by the fiend tide. But I didn't have enough fiendstone. If Wang Kui brought back people and enough fiendstone from other stations, I would build the wall before nightfall. If he failed, we could only upgrade the towers and build traps first. Meanwhile, Zhang Beichen's a pale, unsteady middle-aged man held a fiend hide map and hurried into the pavilion to report to a young man. Young master, Zhang Beichen Family Station 37 is still lit. Lucky last night, no fiends attacked. But fiends grow more active in the rainy season. Tonight they won't be so lucky. The young man in the pavilion looked satisfied. He took the fiend hide map and stared straight at Station 37, deep in the wastelands north. According to plan, it should be dark by now. They only gave him 3 fiendstone. Yet days later, it still hadn't gone dark. That meant he was lucky. Even that remote station had travelers stay overnight. But that luck ends now. Rain came early. Fiend tides rage. A station with no defenses at all has no way to survive. They always called him a bastard, but the Chen family all knew he was the true eldest son of the lawful wife, with the rightful claim to inherit. While he lived, no peace. Oh, the boy frowned slightly. Any flaws in sending Chen Fan deep into the wasteland? None. The middle-aged man shook his head gravely. Everything followed the rules. By Chen clan law, every Chen family member must serve a year at a family station. Chen Fan was due. He left with 3 fiendstone. That was also required. All by procedure. Except the man grinned. I only sent him to an abandoned station almost no one passed by. Even if Master looks into it, he won't find fault. Besides, how could Master not know? He approved. Master still relies on your mother and her level 5 architect guest elder. True, but leave no room for gossip. The boy shook his head and said softly, the rains came early. A fiend tide is likely. Our focus now is surviving this rainy season. Just then, a servant came from afar and whispered in his ear. Young master, the 3 families in Zhangbei City are meeting about the rains. Master wants you there. I know. The boy's face stayed calm, but as he rose, he could not help a faint smile. He would be Patriarch Chen one day. As for Chen Fan, he should be in the wilds, waiting to die. Meanwhile, I stood in the storm, watching those beyond the camp's safe zone. 7 in all. Wang Kui brought them from nearby stations. Limp Monkey was checking them one by one, taking message talisman and all means of contact, and placing a fiendstone in each palm to keep imposters out. A moment later, I looked at them all. I swept my gaze over them and rasped, listen, you serve the 3 powers, so you should have heard my name. I am Chen Fan, heir of Zhang Beichen family. My mother, level 4 architect. For years, family infighting made me a target, until I ended up station master of this abandoned station. At this point I'll be blunt. Before dying, she left me an architect legacy. I came here to dodge family spies and build strength in secret. I built these 2 level 2 arrow towers. Now just follow my orders. And I, Chen Fan, will keep as many of you alive as I can all season. After that, stay or go as you wish. The 6 traded looks. They took out bundles, set them down, and rasped. As you command. Good. I glanced at the fiend hide map. Then I turned to Wang Kui and ordered, time is short. Farther stations are out. 2 nearby stations were destroyed last night. Take Little Chiu and 2. Split up. Search both stations. Bring back anything useful. They may still hold some fiendstone. Yes, once Wang Kui left, I turned to the cabin behind me. I realized being the Chen family bastard and invoking my unknown mother worked well. In this world, with those 2 as backing, earning basic trust was much easier. Sir? A pock-marked man behind me hurried over through the rain and asked, is there anything we can do? He van Zhangbei Chen Family Station 36. The early rain stranded him in the wasteland. In the downpour I turned to the pock-marked man beside me and said quietly, I know you. You ran Zhangbei Chen Family Station 36. Scarface Wang, take 3 others. Before nightfall, tear down this cabin. Wang said nothing. He quickly nodded and called the others to work. I glanced at Scarface Wang's back, then took Limp Monkey's bag. They weren't wealthy. The bag held 176 fiendstone, plus my own 200 fiendstone, makes 376 fiendstone. More than the 320 fiendstone needed for the wall. Before nightfall, I can build a wall. That should make tonight safer. Only, Wang Kui alone gave 137 fiendstone. These 6 together gave only 176 fiendstone. Maybe they were poorer than Wang Kui, or they had kept some back. I said nothing more, and looked at the wall blueprint. Building it only cost fiendstone with no extra materials. I stood in the downpour and slowly closed my eyes. Then, hundreds of fiendstone floated up and cracked apart. Milky liquid formed a silver river in the air. Around the fiend fire, a ring-shaped wall of white lines suddenly rose from the ground. As the liquid flowed into it, the wall began to solidify. This was his most costly structure, a stone wall. Chen Fan walked up the stone steps alone. Its solid feel underfoot pleased him. Then he checked the wall's panel. To upgrade the whole wall to level 2, it would cost 1,600 fiendstone. He could not afford that for now. The wall stood taller than the arrow towers, so they could not hit targets beyond it. But the wall had several empty slots. They could hold various defenses. He could move the 2 arrow towers by the camp fiendfire onto the wall. It would cost no extra resources. A single thought was enough. Then, the 2 level 2 arrow towers by the fiendfire dissolved into milky white light. Then, at the north and south ends, tower phantoms appeared and solidified. In a blink, the 2 level 2 arrow towers had been placed on the wall. For him, with direct access to panels, this was extremely simple. But to native architects, it would be pure fantasy, utterly impossible. He had 56 fiendstone left. Chen Fan sighed at the field beyond the wall. It was 5 meters square. It could barely fit inside the wall, but this one could not be moved. He hoped few fiends came tonight. His crops needed 2 more days to ripen. He did not want the field destroyed first. A moment later, Chen Fan left the wall and set a bear trap beside the field. He had to protect his field as best he could. Little sprouts. He crouched, watching the shoots breaking through the soil and murmured, "You have to survive." The seeds had sprouted. They looked sturdy, not scattered by the violent storm, but not against a fiend tide. He looked at the level 1 bear trap. The camp now had 5 bear traps. They had earned him plenty of fiendstone. A bear trap cost only 2 fiendstone. Upgrading it to level 2 was cheap too. Just 10 fiendstone. He decided to test it. Then, 10 fiendstone on the ground shattered. They turned into milky liquid and flowed into the bear trap. A panel slowly appeared before him. Bear trap upgraded to level 2. Ground spikes. Must be fixed in one location. Cannot be moved freely. Reusable. Please choose an upgrade path. 1. Blend with the surroundings. Well hidden. Hard to detect. 2. Increased power. 3. Faster ground spikes reset. The original bear trap before him had become a square phantom, 1 meter by 1 meter, of ground spikes. Ready. He chose the second upgrade path and placed it in front of the field. It stood out. On cracked earth, a square patch of ground was dotted with dozens of neat holes. It looked like a tree core eaten by worms. He picked up a fiend's corpse limp monkey had not buried in the field, and tossed it over the holes. Then, flick, a soft snap rang out. Dozens of dark, thick wooden spikes shot up like striking vipers. They pierced the fiend's corpse at once. Its power far surpassed the bear trap. Not bad, Chen Fan nodded, mildly pleased, cheap, useful, and free to run. It needed no fiendstone for power. If intact, it could keep working. He had 46 fiendstone left. Chen Fan stood beside the field, rose, and looked toward the darkening horizon. He narrowed his eyes. On his construction panel there was Sacrificial Tower. It required 20 fiendstone to build. Its effects were rather vague. Level 1, Sacrificial Tower. Gain special resources. Construction cost, 20 fiendstone. He did not plan to keep much fiendstone tonight. He was weighing more ground spikes against building the Sacrificial Tower. After a long while, he took out 40 fiendstone, upgraded the remaining 4 bear traps, all to level 2, and chose the second path for all of them. He lined them up neatly along the field's camp-facing edge. Chen Fan looked at his work with satisfaction. With these 5 ground spikes, his field should be mostly protected. The arrow towers could handle the rest. In the end, he put the Sacrificial Tower aside. First, survive tonight. If he made it through, he would have plenty of time to study it. Everything was ready now. All that remained was the wind. Eternal night would descend in roughly half an hour. Heavy rain fell, and mist shrouded the world. A flood of chill swept through every corner of the wasteland. Zhangbei Chen Family Station 37. Inside the newly built wooden cabin, Chen Fan and the others sat around the stove. Everyone had changed into dry clothes. Eternal night was approaching. After some conversation, the group gradually grew familiar. But just as they were chatting, all sounds suddenly stopped. The cabin fell deathly quiet. A wave of dread seized everyone. Chen Fan rose and went to the door. He opened it, watching darkness surge in. He whispered, "It's here." Then, without hesitation, he took a spear from the nearby weapon rack and stepped into the rain. Limp Monkey reacted first as well. He quickly grabbed his Godslayer spear and limped into the rainy night, following close behind Chen Fan. The others rushed out after them. On the wall, Chen Fan's group held various weapons and stood behind the parapet in the downpour, staring beyond the camp. Rustle, rustle. A chorus of scraping sounds rose in the dark, like a swarm of insects passing through. From the sound alone, their numbers were enough to chill the heart. Chen Fan frowned slightly and tightened his grip on the spear. With such a commotion, he was not sure they could hold. The next moment, a burst of laughter came from the dark. Then, the wild laughter, sweeping like a storm, instantly turned deep and low, becoming broken sobs around their ears. The weeping was not loud, but it chilled the soul. Just as everyone neared their limit, the laughter stopped abruptly. Dozens of fiends then rushed from the dark and charged at the wall, claws bared. They were humanoid fiends, with extremely long arms reaching almost to their ankles. Their long, sharp fingers gleamed a deathly white, a kind of fiends they had never seen. At the same time, the 2 nearest level 2 arrow towers turned toward the dozens of fiends in the camp. As the crossbows atop the towers jolted, a bolt as thick as a baby's forearm became a black streak, cutting through the rain. It shot out with thunderous force and a shrill whistle. Whoosh! The bolt pierced straight through the chest of the lead fiends and pinned it to the ground. The pole thin fiends twitched a few times, then went still. Bolts fired one after another. Soon all 20 plus fiends were shot dead. Only one fiend reached the wall, but its full strength claw strike did not even leave a mark on the stone. Seeing this, Chen Fan let out a breath. His taut nerves finally eased a little. He pulled his hand from his coat and looked down at the 20 plus fiends' corpses in the camp, smiling. He even saw beside one fiend an item glowing with white light. It was a rare treasure. Finally, another rare treasure dropped. When the towers killed the entire wave, everyone finally stopped holding their breath and gradually grew excited. The camp seems pretty safe. Station Master. Wang Kui leaned excitedly over the parapet, looking down at the fiends' corpses. Chen Fan narrowed his eyes into the dark. Though the wall and towers seemed effective, he did not let his guard down. He knew very well this was only the appetizer. For one thing, that eerie laughter definitely did not come from these pole-like fiends. That meant a powerful fiends were still in the dark, watching the camp like prey, ready to charge in at any moment. But after this wave of stilt fiend was wiped out, no more fiends rushed in. The shrill, eerie laughter stopped too, yet rustling still came from the dark. Were they avoiding the fiend fire or gathering strength for another assault? Chen Fan narrowed his eyes. From behind the battlements, he looked at the scattered fiends' corpses below. Beside one of the fiends' corpses, a white glowing item had dropped. Rare item. He had not seen one drop in a long time. If it could boost his strength right away, his odds tonight would be a little better. But fiends were far faster than humans. If fiends attacked while someone picked it up, that person would likely die. Limp Monkey stood beside him with the god-slaying spear, staring fixedly at the fiend's corpse and the white glowing object beside it.
Master, I'll go down and bring it back. My leg may be bad, but I don't run much slower than others. The fiends won't attack yet. I should be fine.
He didn't turn. It had to be said. The disabled were often more sensitive. He had shown nothing, but Limp Monkey had guessed his thoughts. Limp Monkey finished. Little Chu hurriedly said, "Station Master."
Let me go. I'm fit and in my prime. I'm fast.
A chance. Little Chu wanted this. If he could earn merit now.
Fine, you go.
Chen Fan did not hesitate. He glanced at Zhou Mo, who was about to speak, not a word. He opened the wall section, patted Little Chu's shoulder and said, "Take care." Time was tight. This was no time for more words. The fiends could attack again at any moment. Zhou Mo wanted to go too. He was level 2. His body was stronger than theirs, trained young. By rights, he was the best choice. But he knew he was selfish. This job was extremely dangerous. If someone had to die, losing Little Chu was better than losing Zhou Mo. In his mind, Zhou Mo was worth more than Little Chu. Inside, Little Chu left the wall and quickly crossed the fiend's corpses. He rushed to that fiend's body and picked up the white glowing rare item. Excited, he turned to the people on the wall. "I got it!" But then, he saw the people on the wall wearing grim expressions. He understood almost instantly. His face went deathly pale. Time seemed to slow endlessly. The pouring rain seemed to freeze. He saw the station master shouting something in panic, but his lips moved painfully slowly. He couldn't hear him. His mind went completely blank. A crossbow bolt grazed his scalp and shot behind him. "I'm done." That was the last thought in his mind. He had no time to look back. A chill shot up from his tailbone, racing along his spine to his skull. Every hair on his back stood up. It felt like cold insects crawling behind him. Run. Life really flashes before death. He forced his legs forward and sprinted. At the same time, scenes from his life flashed through his mind. The gate had not yet closed, but he was 7 or 8 meters from the wall. The fiends only 2 or 3 behind. The fiends were far faster than him. Before he could reach the wall, the fiends would catch him first. Worse, because of him, the camp might fall. Little Chu reacted in an instant. He had no time to wipe rain from his face. Feeling the sharp wind behind him, he screamed with all his strength, "Close the gate!" Then without hesitation, he slammed to a stop. He rolled aside, barely dodging the fiend's attack. Then he scrambled forward on all fours, eyes red, rushing toward the left side field. Traps were there. That was his only chance to live. He had never imagined he could run so fast. Several bolts brushed past him. The wall towers were firing. He didn't know their shape, or even how many there were. A few steps in, he saw a line of ground spikes traps. Nearly 100 neat holes linked together, perfectly aligned. Like a leaping cob, he roared and sprang up from the ground. He cleared the traps and fell into the field. Rain-soaked mud left him in a mess. But, click. The sound of the trap triggering made him laugh. Little Chu sat up in the field, wiped the rain from his face, and looked at the 2 fiends caught in the trap. They were smaller, with arms turned into blades. The mantis-like fiends were instantly pierced by dozens of thick black wooden spikes. They died on the spot. No fiends stood inside the camp anymore. A dozen more mantis-like fiends lay on the ground. He could not help laughing again. His laughter grew louder. Adrenaline and surviving death left him wildly exhilarated. He raised the rare item high, looked at Chen Fan on the wall, and shouted again, "I got it!" "Stop fucking laughing. I know you got it. Get the fuck back inside." As the gate opened, Chen Fan's furious curses rang through the rainy night. "Got it!" Little Chu scrambled up from the field and stumbled toward the open gate. This time, no fiends rushed into the camp. Covered head to toe in mud, Little Chu returned inside, gasping, and climbed the stone steps back onto the wall. He saw everyone looking at him. Their gazes were deeply complicated. There was admiration, there was respect, and something else. He had never seen such looks before. In his whole life, he had never had a moment like this. He straightened his chest without thinking, raised the white glowing item, handed it to Chen Fan, and grinned, "Station Master."
I got it.
On the rain-soaked wall, Chen Fan took the rare item from Little Q.
Well done. Why did you think to run toward the field instead of back to the wall?
There wasn't enough time. If I ran toward the wall, I never would have made it. Even if they didn't catch me, the wall would have been breached. Brother Wang has been good to me. Station Master, you took me in during the rainy season. Everyone is fighting to survive it. I didn't want to get everyone killed. If someone had to die, it should just be me. Chen Fan said no more. He simply took the rare item from Little Q, stepped forward, and patted his shoulder. You're Little Q, right? That was decisive. You did very well this time. In truth, the disaster Little Q feared would not have happened. If there had not been enough time, Chen Fan would have closed the gate. Still, he had not expected Little Q to handle it so perfectly. Such decisive judgment. For now, no fiends rushed into the camp. Chen Fan narrowed his eyes at the rainy darkness. He felt what happened was no coincidence. Could it really be that perfect? The moment Little Q reached the camp's edge, the fiends in the dark attacked. And this wave of fiends looked like mantis men. They were extremely fast, even faster than the first wave of stilt fiend. They were clearly poor at siege attacks, but suited for pursuit. The stilt fiend, however, stood just over 3 meters tall, making them better for siege warfare. He strongly suspected the fiends that first gave that eerie laugh might possess some intelligence. It could likely see the camp's layout, and was ready to besiege them at any time. Then he looked down at the rare item in his hand, his eyes narrowing slightly. It was a sheet of fiend hide, thin as cicada wings. It felt somewhat like the fiend hide map. On the fiend hide, scarlet lines depicted a structure. It resembled an arrow tower, but was taller and narrower. It was a building blueprint, an extremely rare item. Among all rare items, building blueprints were truly rare. This was his first building blueprint. Rare item, name, watchtower blueprint. Rare item, grade, white, effect. Build a watchtower with it. The watchtower grants vision 50 meters outside the camp. Without hesitation, he chose to build the watchtower in his mind. The next moment, a tower 10 meters tall, formed from countless white lines, appeared as a narrow phantom floating in the air. As 10 fiendstone in his palm shattered into milky liquid and flowed into it, the tower phantom gradually solidified, and stood beside the wooden house inside the wall. Its base was only 1 meter wide and long, broad below and narrow above. At the very top was something like a luminous night pearl. The instant the watchtower formed, their vision expanded. Beyond the camp had been absolute darkness, terrifying as an abyss. But now, within 50 meters of the camp, the pitch black turned pale gray. Beyond 50 meters, darkness still loomed. They could clearly see through the pale grey mist, hundreds of fiends moving in groups, passing the camp toward deeper darkness. They looked like migrating animals, flashing past too quickly to see clearly. But 4 stilt fiends carried a blood-red sedan chair. They did not join the migration. They stopped steadily 30 meters from the camp. Around them were about 100 fiends. Chen Fan took a deep breath. Standing on the wall, he looked into the grey mist beyond the fiend fire. The watchtower gave him more information. A 50-meter field of vision was no small help to him. He finally understood what was happening. If he was right, those 2 larger fiends were likely minor leaders. The watchtower let him clearly see how many fiends were passing his camp. If all these fiends charged into his camp without care, he would be dead for sure. There was no way he could hold them off. Only this group lurked outside the camp, while the others ignored it as they passed, as if rushing on their way. 2 level 2 arrow towers were no longer enough. Back then, the 2 level 2 arrow towers failed to kill the monkey head fiend leader on the spot. It escaped and bled out dozens of meters away. Now there were 2 leaders like that, plus an even stronger chief. Level 2 arrow towers would not be enough. He needed level 3 arrow towers. Luckily, he had saved enough fiendstone for upgrades. Upgrading a level 2 arrow tower to level 3 required 50 fiendstone. Without wasting time, he took out 5 green level 2 fiendstone. Then fiendstone broke into a wisp of eerie green liquid in the air. It flew to the nearest level 2 arrow tower. A panel soon appeared before him. Tower hit level 3. Choose an upgrade path. 1. Bolts gain fire element. Power increased. 2. Unlock active skill, Arrow Storm. Once activated, the top ballista fires upward and rains arrows on a target area for several seconds. Costs 1 fiendstone. 3. Bolts gain lightning element. It can paralyze enemies, and chain damage up to 3 nearby targets. Active skill. Chen Fan narrowed his eyes at the upgrade paths. This was his first active skill option. It looked quite powerful. Against fiends swarming the camp, 1 skill could wipe them out, and the cost was low, just 1 fiendstone. At level 3, it began to change. First, its wood and stone frame became solid stone. It merged with the wall without looking odd. It was sturdier now. This skill, called Arrow Storm, fired bolts with level 2 tower power. Its power was not much higher, but against huge numbers of weak fiends, it was perfect. Though he was tempted, he chose the first upgrade path. It boosted the tower's single target damage. The 2 fiend leaders outside, and the unknown female fiend in the sedan were still watching him. What he needed most now was a way to threaten those 3. The moment he made his choice, the arrow tower changed again. The ballista on top slowly turned from black to dark red. Just then, Limp Monkey's urgent voice rang out. Young master!
A fiend tide is charging at us!
Chen Fan looked where Limp Monkey pointed. Dozens of meters outside the camp, a mass of fiends surged from the north straight toward the camp. He frowned slightly. These fiends were not under those 3 leaders. They were fiends crossing eternal night. They had no limbs. Each was a flesh ball with human faces. They moved by rolling. Many came. At a glance, there were over 100, but they were not fast. They rolled like strollers. Sir, fleshworm fiend. Jomo stood on the wall with his broadsword. He spoke quickly. I know these fiends. They come in rainy season, not in normal eternal night. They barely attack. Their only attack is self-destruction. They explode on contact with anything hard. Their bodies turn into thick green liquid. It is highly corrosive. It can badly damage the wall, and when they appear in swarms, the wall usually falls. Chen Fan did not answer. Time was running out. Even at their slow speed, the fleshworm fiend were only 10 odd meters away. Many fleshworm fiends were briefly blown into the air by the gale, then fell and kept rolling forward. He glanced at the sedan in the western grey fog. The instant the fleshworm fiend appeared, the sedan and the fiends around it had somehow withdrawn from the grey fog and vanished into night. Classy. He took a deep breath. He pulled out 5 green glowing fiendstone and slammed them into the tower. As he upgraded it to level 3, he chose Arrowstorm as its active skill path. The camp was now at the brink of life and death. If both groups of fiends attacked together, things would get very ugly. Luckily, the female fiend had taken her pack and left. He did not think she was being honorable. Clearly, she feared fleshworm fiend too and wanted no spillover. Ah! A piercing scream rang through the camp. The first fleshworm fiend broke through the fog. The faces on the fleshball sensed fiendfire and shrieked in agony. They clearly hated approaching fiendfire, yet the body obediently rolled toward the camp. As more fleshworm fiend rushed in, piercing screams overlapped across the camp. Then, atop a level 3 arrow tower on the wall, the runes on the ballista flared. Dozens of complex runes rose in white light and hovered around the tower. Then click, a nearly inaudible mechanism sounded. Countless light arrows shot rapidly from the ballista, surging skyward like a reverse waterfall. They formed a cloud of light arrows high above, then fell like judgment. Through the downpour, they covered a whole area north of the wall. Sizzle. Dozens of rolling fleshworm fiends were struck and almost wiped out. They sizzled like red-hot iron in butter. The light arrows faded. Corpses littered the ground, melting into pools of green liquid corroding the land. Fiendstone dropped from their bodies, lying quietly in the liquid. They looked tempting. The first fleshworm fiend charge was nearly wiped out. Arrowstorm had limited range. Some slipped through. A few entered the camp, but they were not heading for the wall. They skimmed past the edge of the wall and rolled on into the eternal night. They had no intention of turning back. Chen Fan quickly glanced at the ones crossing the west side of the camp and the many fleshworm fiend rolling in the fog. He stood by the rune-covered level 3 tower and wasted no time. He inserted another fiendstone into the socket. He waited a few seconds. When enough fleshworm fiend entered range, he activated the skill again. Arrowstorm. The runes on the bolts lit again. Countless light arrows shot into the sky. Like an arrow rain, they tore through the storm and wiped out the fleshworm fiend in range. But none of Chen Fan's group smiled. Their faces were grim. Everyone knew they were running out of fiendstone. Only 6 fiendstone remained. That meant 6 more arrowstorms. Yet fleshworm fiend kept pouring from the eternal night into the grey fog, then from the fog into the camp. But just then, a faint impact sounded. It was a mist fleshworm fiend hitting the wall. The fleshball burst into green sludge that kept corroding the wall. He had lost count of how many got through. The 5th or the 6th. Even with Arrowstorm, stragglers still crossed the arrow zone and hit the wall. On the west side, even more fleshworm fiend rolled past the wall and into the darkness. The camp was not their target. More fleshworm fiend emerged from the fog outside and moved deeper into the eternal night. The camp was merely in their path. They were not even trying to kill him. Even so, he had been forced into near certain death. Can we dig a hole and hide? Chen Fan inserted another fiendstone into the tower. He spoke faster. We abandon the camp. These fleshworm fiend don't seem to attack us. Other fiends won't approach while they pass. We hide underground. After the fleshworm fiend pass, we rebuild a fiend fire. No, Wang Kui quickly rejected the plan. Architect can't build fiend fire in the eternal night. He did not know why Station Master was unaware, but this was no time to think about it. I'll go. Little Chu stepped forward again. He looked up at the arrow rain firing skyward. His hands gripped his clothes tightly. His knuckles turned white. He spoke fast. Many fleshworm fiend are dead. A lot of fiendstone dropped below. I'll go out and throw the fiendstone back in. During the night talk earlier, I never said what my wish was. I want to see my home again. Brother Wang knows where I live. If you get the chance, take my ashes home and bury them under the locust tree. Little Chu had stepped forward again, but this time was different. The fleshworm fiend tide was enormous. When Arrowstorm fell, there was indeed a brief gap, but that gap would soon be filled from behind. It lasted only an instant. Not enough time to return. He would be swallowed from behind. That brief instant was only enough for Little Chu to grab fiendstone and throw them back over the wall. The fiendstone could make it in. He definitely could not. If the last task was extremely dangerous, this one meant certain death. As soon as he finished, Zhou Mo, who had been standing aside, suddenly patted Little Chu on the shoulder. He shoved his broadsword into Little Chu's arms. Calmly he said, "You're still young. Keep this blade. It's been with me for years." Before anyone could react, he vaulted over the battlement in the rain and landed firmly outside the wall. Arrowstorm happened to fall then. A brief gap opened before the wall. Zhou Mo wasted no time. He stepped through the green sludge, ignoring the burning pain, and stumbled as he stuffed fiendstone into a bag. He looked up at the fleshworm fiend rushing at him. Fear rose in his eyes despite himself. He took a deep breath. With all his strength, he roared and hurled the bag over the wall. Then, as if drained of strength, he stood still and looked up at the endless rain. Head high, arms spread, eyes closed, he waited for death. He could not help smiling. He had not smiled like this in a long time. Not bad. I fulfilled my dream before dying. I finally got to be a hero. Feels good. His name was Zhou Mo, station master of Chu Heiwang Family Station 18. He had loved martial arts since childhood. He loved wielding a blade. As a boy, he dreamed of becoming a hero, but he never had the chance, nor the talent. He fought hard to become a level 2 cultivator, then served as a station master in the Wang family. He thought he would drift along forever, until rainy season came and he followed Chen Fan. Seeing little Chu risk his life to save the camp, the heart that longed to be a hero stirred again. The rain was cold, but his blood had never burned this hot. If little Chu could do it, why couldn't Zhou Mo? This life was worth it. Zhou Mo would no longer be nameless. He believed those on the wall would remember his name. However, Zhou Mo stood in the rain, arms spread and head high. Feeling the cold downpour splatter across his face, he finally could not help twitching his nose. They say your life flashes before your eyes. Time slows down, but he never thought it would be this slow. After a while, I'm not dead yet? Zhou Mo opened his eyes in confusion. Is this life flash taking too long? When he looked around, he found the fleshworm fiend had all vanished. Everything before seemed like an illusion. Neither inside the camp nor in the grey fog was there a single fleshworm fiend. Only the sludge underfoot reminded him it was not an illusion. He stood blankly in the green sludge, and looked up at the people on the wall, having no idea what had happened. Come back up! Chen Fan had been holding back laughter on the wall. At last, he burst out laughing.
Stop posing! Your arms must be sore by now! Fate is on my side!
Chen Fan stood on the wall. He gripped the battlements and gazed afar. The fleshworm fiends retreated. Each fleshworm fiend was a ball of flesh, nor wriggle. Wind was its only way to move, so the fleshworm fiends could not steer themselves. Zhou Mo threw the stone in and spread his arms, waiting to die. The gale blew west. Many fleshworm fiends vanished with it into night. Zhou Mo. Chen Fan took the broadsword from little Chu. He handed it to Zhou Mo back on the wall. With a grave look he said, camp cultivators may seem useless, but at level 3, 4 or 5, they will eventually prove their worth. As long as you stay at the camp, I will use Fiendstone to help you improve. Guard the camp.
Rest easy. I'm here. Nothing will happen to the camp.
After surviving the crisis and assigning everyone's tasks, Chen Fan stood on the wall, studying the Fiendtide map. His expression was troubled, and he said nothing. 90% of the stations on the map had gone dark. Only 7 or 8 stations still stood alone in the wasteland. The rains were on night 2. But the wasteland stations had nearly been wiped out. Tonight was bound to be sleepless. Meanwhile, Limp Monkey returned with a vat. Too much stone. The sack was full, so he simply packed it in the vat. Master, Limp Monkey took out 3 glowing items from his robe and offered them. I counted everything.
There are 484 Fiendstone in total, and 3 rare treasures.
Okay. Chen Fan quickly checked the 3 treasures' details. Then he looked back into the grey fog beyond the camp. The swarm had withdrawn, but the danger was not over. The laughing female fiend would surely return. However, since the female fiend in the sedan was clearly intelligent, he did not spend Fiendstone to strengthen the camp right away. Instead, he devised a trap to catch her inside. Time passed bit by bit. The swarm had passed. No sign it would return. Not a single fiend appeared in the grey fog. So it went, until the heavy darkness above, like a layer of lava, rapidly ebbed away like a tide, revealing endless clouds that covered the sky. Daybreak. One more night.
When you're done, go sleep.
Chen Fan looked to the barren ground outside, where Wang Kui's group dissected them. By then, Wang Kui's group had finished dissecting all the fiend corpses outside the wall. They brought him another 41 Fiendstone. No treasures, but after adding everything together, he now had 529 Fiendstone. Chen Fan stood beside the farmland. Facing the rain, he looked toward the gloomy distance. Then he suddenly chuckled. If not for last night's fleshworm Fiendtide, these 529 Fiendstone would have taken him ages to save. Then he gathered his thoughts and looked down at the 3 rare treasures in his hand. They had all dropped last night. There was no rush to use them. He had stayed tense all night. His mind was still a little foggy. Decisions made like this were often unwise. He would decide after sleeping. Satisfied, Chen Fan rose and returned to the wooden hut. He took off his soaked hemp clothes. He glanced at Limp Monkey, asleep with his spear in his arms. Smiling, he lay down on the bed beside him and slowly drifted into sleep. Another night survived. The rainy season had its advantages. At least it kept many monsters and demons away, giving him enough time to grow. For example, after dawn, when news came that Zhangbei Chen Family Station 37 was still stubbornly holding on, the Chen family in Zhangbei City must have been lively. When someone meant to die refuses to, certain people are bound to squirm. Zhangbei City. Inside the Zhangbei Chen family estate, a middle-aged man in training clothes stood solemnly in the downpour. His eyes were closed. His palms were pressed together. He stood as still as in meditation. The next instant, his eyes snapped open. A sharp gleam flashed from them. Several level 2 Fiendstone in his palm shattered instantly, turning into dark green liquid that drifted in the air. Go! The middle-aged man gave a low command. His finger stabbed forward. The dark green liquid seemed alive, darting swiftly through the air. It gradually formed the phantom of an arrow tower made of pale green liquid. During the drawing process, some of the pale green liquid kept dissolving into the air. Rise. A few breaths later, the man clenched his palm again. The arrow tower phantom rapidly solidified in the downpour until it stood tall in the courtyard. Beside him, a servant held an oil paper umbrella and flattered him with a broad smile. Guest Elder Lu, your use of Fiendstone energy grows more efficient. Now, to build an arrow tower, you need only 5 level 2 Fiendstone. On the market today, hiring an architect to build one for a camp costs at least 150 fiendstone. Before long, you will be Zhongbei's undisputed top architect. The middle-aged man snorted coldly. A trace of pride flashed in his eyes. Then he looked around and frowned slightly. Where is the patriarch? Doesn't he usually train here in the morning? I am not sure, sir. Leave us. I'll go check on the patriarch. Zhongbei Chen family. Side courtyard. A young man hurried through the rain to the council hall. Father. After bowing his head in greeting, the young man sat in his seat. The atmosphere felt faintly wrong today. Father's face looked grim, with a trace of anger. Little Quan is here. Everyone is present. This urgent meeting concerns the Chen family's future. Speak freely. Say whatever is on your mind. Little Quan was the young man's childhood name. His full name was Chen Quan. He was the Zhongbei Chen family's first heir. Everyone was present. Chen Quan froze slightly. He keenly sensed a hint of unease. Still, he immediately put on a look of perfect composure and sat in his seat. He was still inexperienced. Whatever this was, it surely had nothing to do with him. All he needed to do was stay quiet. However, father's next words made cold sweat break across his back. Shen Fan, my son. A few days ago, someone sent him to Zhongbei Chen family station 37 in the wasteland as station master. His only attendant was his personal servant, Limp Monkey. He was a servant trained by the family 3 years ago. They set out with only 3 fiendstone. As soon as he finished, Chen Quan's expression changed drastically. He rose to his feet without thinking, not daring to look father in the eye. His voice trembled. Father, according to Chen family rules, sending Chen Fan to train in the wasteland follows ancestral law. Everything followed procedure. Before he could finish, the sound of knuckles on the table cut him off. The middle-aged man in the seat of honor tapped the table, lips pressed tight. The rainy season came early. Today is its 3rd day. Of all the stations in the wasteland that failed to evacuate, only 2 survived. One is Chu Wang Family Station 16, the other is Zhongbei Chen Family Station 37. He tossed a fiend-hide map onto the table. Leaning back, he rubbed his temples. His hoarse voice sounded tired. Elders, what do you make of this? Speak freely. Quan, you're Chen's future heir. Think first. I want to hear your thoughts later. This, impossible. Once he finished, the Chen family elders exchanged looks of disbelief. They did not know he was sent to the wilds. But seeing Chen Quan's reaction, they quickly understood. In a great family, it was common. The only strange part was how Chen Fan's Station 37 survived to the 3rd day of the rain season. The elders exchanged a look. The Grand Elder spoke first. As I know it, Zhongbei Chen Family Station 37 was abandoned. After it was reactivated days ago, the camp had only 1 fiend fire and a shabby wooden hut. It had no defenses at all. By all rights, that camp should not have lasted 3 days, especially in an early rain season. I suspect young Master Chen Fan was simply lucky. After all, Chu Wang Family Station 16 has not fallen yet either. Exactly. We think so as well. Most likely. The elders soon reached an agreement. Patriarch Chen said nothing. He only looked up at Chen Quan, signaling for him to speak. Chen Quan could not read father at all. He grew uneasy. Forcing down his fear, his voice shook. In my view, big brother must have been lucky. Perhaps we could try a rescue and bring him home. When he finished, the elders exchanged another look. Each saw the same helplessness. Young Master Quan was panicking. Chen family lacked the power to rescue people in the rain. Why was he babbling nonsense? Patriarch Chen lowered his eyes again. He fell silent. His fingers tapped the table unconsciously. At last a faint sigh sounded in the room. Patriarch Chen opened his eyes. His gaze swept over everyone as he rasped. When my late wife was alive, she once quarreled with me and hid outside the city. We searched for ages. We found her at Zhongbei Chen Family Station 37. That, do you remember? The Grand Elder had sat still, but those words jolted him awake. Horror flashed in his eyes. He met the Patriarch's gaze. Sir, do you mean, inside Zhongbei Chen Family Station 37, there may be Madam's architect inheritance? No. The second elder quickly shook his head. Awakening as an architect is up to fate. Even with an architect inheritance, it cannot turn a normal cultivator into an architect. Young Master Chen Fan already awakened in the family. He became no special cultivator. Normally, a second awakening is impossible. Quan, Patriarch Chen faced him. He said each word clearly. Back then, did you send Chen Fan to Station 37, or did he ask to go there himself? I arranged it. Chen now knew how serious this was. He dared not hide anything. It was an abandoned station. I had my men search the hut. Nothing was inside. It was almost empty. Big brother. He could never become an architect. Ha! Patriarch Chen suddenly laughed. He leaned back wearily. He did not know what his late wife had left. Perhaps there really was a treasure that could make a cultivator an architect. But why hide it from him? Did his late wife not know if Chen Fan could become an architect? He would pour every resource into him. He was his own son. But talk was useless now. A newly awakened architect with no resources to support him could never survive this rain season. Let alone Chen Fan. Even the Chen family's level 5 architect would die in the wasteland this season. Just then, the doors of the council hall burst open. Patriarch Chen, guest elder Lu, entered with displeasure. He dropped into his own seat. Are you hiding some important discussion from me? I have served the Chen family for years. Do I not even have the right to listen in now? Patriarch Chen paused, then forced a smile. He walked behind guest elder Liu and set both hands on his shoulders. You always say not to call you for every meeting, so I thought with this heavy rain, I should let you rest. It is nothing. The rain season is here. We were discussing the Chen family's next steps. Truly? Guest elder Liu looked back at Patriarch Chen, but when he saw Chen Quan was present, he relaxed and smiled. Little Quan is here too. Patriarch Chen, Now that is more like it. Bring little Quan to more meetings. I watched this boy grow up. He has what it takes. Give young people more chances. As if I need you to tell me. Patriarch Chen feigned annoyance. Little Quan is my son. I know his ability better than you. Alright, you may all go. It is time for morning training. After you, guest elder Liu. Patriarch Chen. After you. After Patriarch Chen and the elders left the council hall, only Chen Quan remained, pale-faced. His legs curled on the chair. His body trembled slightly. His eyes were filled with resentment, but soon his lips curled up. Thank heavens the rain season came early. Fate is on my side. Meanwhile in the wilds, Chuheiwang Family Station 16. Zhou Mo was searching for survivors with his men, following the fiend-hide map coordinates in the storm. They walked for a long time before reaching the lit station. A few lonely huts stood in the downpour. Old Chen! Zhou Mo walked into the station shouting at the top of his lungs. His voice cut through the rain into the huts. If he remembered correctly, this station master should be called Old Chen. Yet no one answered. Zhou Mo frowned slightly. He walked up to a wooden hut. After knocking a few times, he shoved the door open and shouted, "Old Chen!" His voice stopped cold. His right foot, about to step inside, froze in midair. After a long moment, he looked at two bodies hanging from the beam. With mixed feelings, he sighed softly. Looks like your luck was not so good either, Old Chen. Clearly. After eternal night fell last night, Old Chen and his men could not take the pressure and hanged themselves. After a long silence, Zhou Mo ordered his men check the fields outside for any crops. Move anything useful onto that cart in the corner. Then he went forward and lowered the bodies. He checked their pockets for valuables. He also stripped their clothes and took the ropes. The fiend fire outside was already very dim. With the station master dead, the fiend fire was fading. It would soon go out completely. Eternal night would fall again. In less than 2 hours, Qin Fan woke up. After a quick wash, he stood at the wooden door and looked outside. He had not slept well last night. The cold had been brutal. The living conditions were poor. He was alone inside. Everyone else was busy outside. After walking beyond the wall, he saw Limp Monkey burying fiends in the fields. Young master. Limp Monkey noticed him and jogged over. He said excitedly, "They are growing well. They should ripen tomorrow." Chen Fan looked at the half-meter seedlings outside. He smiled and nodded. Get back to work. By the schedule, tomorrow was exactly the 3rd day. That was when this crop should mature. The fresh earthy scent in the rain cleared his head. He looked at the 3 treasures in his arms. These were his gains from last night. Next, he had to strengthen the camp again, against whatever crisis might come tonight. The first treasure was a blueprint. Treasure name, sealed copper pipe. Treasure grade, white. Effect, a building module blueprint. Compatible with all buildings. Chen Fan crushed the blueprint in his hand. On the Eternal Night Lord panel in his mind, a change appeared at once. This time, it did not add a craftable building. It added a whole new section. Current craftable buildings: Fiend Fire, Arrow Tower, Wall, Farmland Wooden Hut, Ritual Tower, Watchtower, Bear Trap, Trap. Current craftable building module, Copper Pipe. The module blueprint had a simple description. Copper Pipe is compatible with all buildings. 1 meter cost 1 fiendstone. Though he did not quite understand it, he knew one thing. Practice reveals the truth. He crushed 1 fiendstone. Milky white liquid flowed through the air. Then a 1 meter copper pipe projection floated up. Its size could be adjusted. As narrow as 1 centimeter. As wide as 1 meter. He chose 10 centimeters. The moment the copper pipe projection appeared, every building in the camp became a projection made of white lines. Just like when first built. But Limp Monkey and the others did not react. Clearly, only he could see it. The scene before him was like, his eyes narrowed slightly. He guided the copper pipe toward the fiend fire. When the 2 building projections neared each other, they merged instantly, and quickly turned solid. Then the whole camp returned to normal. The projections vanished. The fiend fire at the center of the camp had also changed. Its base had been a campfire pile of stones. The flame was cold white. But now, the copper pipe seemed naturally set into the fiend fire base, fused with it and fixed to the ground. From another angle, one could faintly see the cold white flame flowing back and forth inside the pipe. Looking at the scene, Chen Fan froze. An unbelievable possibility flashed in his eyes. Could it be? Without the slightest hesitation, he spent another 20 fiendstone and made a 20-meter copper pipe. As the copper pipe projection floated in the air, the buildings across the camp once again turned into projections made of white lines. He took the 20-meter copper pipe and linked it to the pipe connected to Fiendfire. It ran under the wall and 1 meter past camp. Then, the pipe set. Cold white flames from Fiendfire flowed into it. Then he saw something stunning. Chen Fan's breath caught. He looked at the copper pipe module on the Lord panel. After a long pause, he burst out laughing. Good, great. This copper pipe could actually expand the safe zone. The 1 meter section outside camp had also become safe zone. Fiendfire would flow along the pipe. Where it went became his territory. Wild building ideas flashed through his mind. Once he had enough resources, he could even ring the whole continent with copper pipes. All of eternal night. Everywhere he looked would be his land. Outside camp, and looked at the pipe on the crack the wasteland. With a thought, the pipe sank underground, under barren soil. No trace of it remained. Over the next hour, he kept linking buildings with copper pipes, testing for possible synergies. After spending 47 fiendstone on copper pipes for all kinds of tests, he finally stood on the wall, satisfied, and grinned at the camp below. First, he linked 2 towers to Fiendfire through copper pipes. Activating arrow towers cost Fiendstone, but reloading was a hassle. Once connected, all arrow tower costs would draw from the Fiendstone in Fiendfire first. That saved him the trouble of reloading. And the arrow rainstorm skill no longer had any delay. It went from single shot to full auto. Also, he made another copper pipe. One end led to the boiler over the stove, the other to the roof. Rainwater would flow into the boiler and boiled. He made another copper pipe, one end to the boiler and the other into the cabin walls and floor. Boiling water would flow through the pipes to keep the cabin warm. He named it Heating System 1.0. He had just tested it inside. The cabin was warm. Gone was last night's damp chill. Once that was done, Chen Fan cheerfully climbed down from the wall. He was heading to the section, damaged by last night's fleshworm fiend attack. Just then, Zhou Mo came through the storm with his man. He called into the camp. Station master, we're back. Limp Monkey went over. Once they passed the test, he brought them to Chen Fan. Sir, too late. The people at Chuheiwang Family Station 16 all hanged themselves last night. Wasteland-wide, just only our station is left. Chen Fan looked at the travel-worn Zhou Mo and said softly, that's a shame. You've had a hard trip. Go change into dry clothes and warm up first. I'm fine. Zhou Mo shook his head, took a burlap pouch from his coat, and pointed to his man. All the Fiendstone from that camp is here. 48 in total. He helped me collect the Fiendstone. Everything else of value onto this cart and brought it back. It should help. Good. Chen Fan took the pouch with a smile. He understood what Zhou Mo meant. Go rest. Nightfall is an hour away. Time is tight. Chen Fan went alone to the wall section damaged by the fleshworm fiend last night. The green viscous fluid had damaged the wall, but a fist-sized hole barely affected it at all. Then, the camp wall suddenly turned into a building phantom of white light. Among the white lines, he could clearly see several lines in this area had snapped. Needs repair. This repair costs 1 Fiendstone. Not too expensive. Chen Fan took out 1 Fiendstone and crushed it. A few breaths later, the building phantom solidified again. The wall before him was restored, as good as new. Then he built 10 level 2 arrow towers and used a 26-meter copper pipe to link all 10 towers to the Fiendfire at the camp center. He placed 50 Fiendstone in Fiendfire as a reserve, to cover Fiendfire's daily upkeep and power the arrow towers. With that, the camp defenses had improved dramatically. After all that work, he still had 132 Fiendstone left. He looked at the Lord panel, at a building he had never built. Now he had extra Fiendstone to build it. Sacrificial Tower. Grants special resources. Construction cost, 20 Fiendstone. After 20 Fiendstone shattered, a white-lined Sacrificial Tower phantom appeared. He placed it beside the cabin. Chen Fan looked at the tiny sacrificial tower, and a panel slowly appeared. Sacrifice fiends' corpses to obtain special resources. The stronger the fiends' corpses, and the greater their number, the more valuable the resources obtained. This building cannot be upgraded. Sacrifice, as in offerings? Chen Fan nodded thoughtfully. This building's effect is pretty good. The fiends' corpses killed these past days went into the fields. They could be used as fertilizer, but that was getting excessive. With the sacrificial tower, future fiends' corpses had a perfect use. After that, he did nothing more, and quietly waited for eternal night to fall. An hour later, the familiar heavy darkness appeared on the horizon and covered the world like a tide. An eggshell-like halo enveloped the camp once more. Behind the battlements, Limp Monkey noticed something at once. The camp's safe zone was supposed to be round. Why was part of it bulging outward? Confusion flashed in his eyes. This? What do you think? Chen Fan chuckled softly, looking into the grey fog outside camp, waiting patiently for tonight's fiends. It was his new masterpiece. Safe zone overflow. That unremarkable bulge would be the start of many future designs. Tonight was the 3rd night of the rainy season. Chen Fan took Limp Monkey and the others to guard the wall, ready to face tonight's crisis. Zhou Mo and those who had traveled by day went to bed early on his orders. However, after all that waiting, dawn came. Chen Fan frowned slightly, watching the darkness recede like a tide. The night had passed. Nothing had happened. This should have been a good thing. But too many fiends, and he could not hold out. Too few fiends was no good either. Where would he get Fiendstone? He narrowed his eyes and thought for a while, then looked at those who had stayed with him in the rain all night. Alright, it's dawn. Clean up and go sleep inside. This doesn't make sense. The rainy season can't be this quiet. When things are abnormal, trouble is near. We must be fully prepared tonight. Just then, he looked at the fields outside and suddenly smiled. Under the first ray of sunlight, the seedlings grew rapidly and bore abundant fruit. The first crops had ripened. It was time to harvest. Station master. Zhou Mo, full of energy, jogged up the stairs to the wall. We've all had more than enough sleep. What are today's tasks? Chen Fan looked at Zhou Mo and Qichong behind him, then paused. Qichong, stay off field duty today. Harvest all the fruit in the fields later. Zhou Mo, today you'll bring back resources from the fallen nearby stations. Safety first. Understood. Zhou Mo stood in the downpour, fired up, grinning as he answered loudly. A moment later, Limp Monkey's group slept. Chen Fan stood by the fields, watching Qichong, pant legs rolled up, pick fruit in the fields, deep in thought. To be fair, the man was good at farm work. Chen Fan casually asked, a farmer? Qichong wiped the rain from his face and stood to reply. Good. Chen Fan smiled and nodded. This field is yours now. Then he looked at Qichong's man. Your friend works fast too. What's his name? Sir, the rough-looking man answered in a deep voice. I'm Ale. I used to work on a farm with Brother Qi. I raised pigs. Later I left and joined Brother Qi. Pigs? Yes. Good. Chen Fan could not help laughing. One farmer, one herder. Perfect fit. You'll handle the camp's livestock. For now, there's nothing to raise. Help Brother Chi farm for now. Once we have livestock, it's yours. Yes, sir. These fruits and yesterday's fiend materials go in that wooden hut later. Got it. He took out 2 fiend stone. Outside the wall, built a wooden hut. It would serve as a warehouse later. Many mantis fiends died last night. Arms were fiend materials, useful for forging. No use for them yet, but he could gather them first. For later, harvesting everything would still take time. Chen Fan did not wait. He turned toward the wooden hut to get some sleep. Later, soon after, Chen Fan woke up. He stood at the hut door, watching the rain. After thinking, he looked at the 2 relics left in his hand. One was a tiny knife, small as a keychain. Relic name, broadsword. Relic grade, white. Relic effect, deals solid damage to low-tier fiends. Chen Fan looked at the relic and frowned slightly. This was not his first weapon-type relic. The spear Limp Monkey held was also a weapon-type relic. But Limp Monkey's relic had a fierce name, Godslayer Spear. But this was blade, so plain and crude. It had no special effect either. Forget it. He set the relic aside, planning to give it to Zhou Mo. At least it was a weapon relic. As for the other relic, it was rather special. Tiny black specks were sealed in a thin film. A seed-type relic. Relic name, Flesh Fiend Twin Seed. Relic grade, green. Relic effect, plant in a level 2 field. Matures in 7 days. Once mature, it bears twin fruits. 2 people each eat 1. Mental link within 100 li. The effect lasts 1 month. Planting condition. Every 2 hours, water it with fiend's blood. Needs fiend corpses as fertilizer. Good stuff. Chen Fan quietly tucked the seeds away. This relic solved a major problem for him, his lack of communication. For example, if he wanted to reach Zhou Mo on patrol, he had no way. Station master. Seeing Chen Fan leave the wall, Chi Chong, busy in the field, hurried over. It's all picked. The 10 monkey head mushroom seedlings produced 10 mushrooms. The 8 fiendstone vein plants produced 80 fiendstone. They're all in the warehouse. Chen Fan nodded lightly and walked to the warehouse outside camp. He pushed the door open. A neat row of monkey head mushrooms in fiendstone sat on the shelves. The yield was not much. He picked up a mushroom and sniffed it, then took a bite. Earthy sweetness filled his mouth. Huh? Surprise flashed in Chen Fan's eyes. Soon he had finished the mushroom. It tasted surprisingly good. More importantly, it felt warm in his mouth, like a hot current. It did not feel raw at all. After swallowing it, he vaguely felt his body grow a little stronger. Truly not bad. There are 9 left. We have exactly 10 people in camp. Take the remaining 9 and give everyone 1 each. This rain will last a while. Stronger bodies mean fewer illnesses. Then he glanced at the 80 fiendstone on the shelf and handed Chi Chong the Flesh Fiend Twin Seed. I'll upgrade the field to level 2 soon. You and Ale will take turns watching these seeds. They're delicate. Every 2 hours, water them with fiend blood. Limp Monkey buried plenty of fiends' corpses. Dig some up when you need them. Chi Chong carefully took the thin film and held it, grinning. Don't worry, Station Master. I'll take perfect care of this field. Go. Chen Fan walked through the rain to the field. He spent 10 fiendstone to upgrade the field outside camp to level 2. A panel appeared before him. Field upgraded to level 2. This building has no upgrade path. Seems not every building offers upgrade options. After all that was done, Zhou Mo's shout came from outside camp. Station Master. Zhou Mo hurried up to Chen Fan and said eagerly, Station Master, we had a good haul today. And on the way back, Chen Fan cut Zhou Mo off, smiling as he tossed him the broadsword relic. I'm going inside to rest. Report to me later. It's almost dark. Get ready. Use this blade. It's a good one. Zhou Mo looked down at the broadsword relic, grinning from ear to ear. He walked into camp, laughing like a fool. Less than 4 hours remained before eternal night. Inside the camp's wooden hut, Zhou Mo stood and reported, Station Master, today's haul was pretty good. I searched 2 destroyed stations at once and brought back 218 fiendstone. I also brought back food and other useful supplies. But there aren't many nearby stations left. The rest are all far away. We may not make it back in one day. Chen Fan sat in his chair, looking at the fiend-hide map on the wall. His eyes narrowed slightly. That was a problem. Their legs could only take them so far. But the wasteland had nearly 30 ruined stations. Even if each station held only 100 fiendstone, that would still be 3,000 fiendstone. It was an astonishing fortune, enough to upgrade his wall to level 2. He was genuinely tempted, but their lack of speed was a hard problem to solve. No rush on that. After thinking for a moment, Chen Fan said softly, First, clear out the nearby ruined stations. As for the farther ones, I'll find a way. Did anything seem odd in the wasteland? Any difference from the dry season? Actually, yes, Zhou Mo said, puzzled. On the way back, I saw an egg. It was lying alone in the wasteland. I thought there were no creatures out there. So what animal could lay an egg there? Just as I went to check, the egg suddenly cracked. A pile of stinking yolk spilled out. Chen Fan was silent for a long time before saying, Go stand in the rain a bit longer. That egg may have belonged to fiends. I can't smell anything on you, but fiends might be able to. Let the rain wash you as much as possible. Get rid of the scent, or it may doom the camp. As soon as he finished, Zhou Mo's face changed. He instantly realized how serious it was. He dared not delay, and quickly left the hut. After Zhou Mo left, Chen Fan began planning his next move. First, he had to get all the fiendstone from the ruined stations in the wilds. Transportation. A moment later, Chen Fan looked at the copper pipes and ground spikes. An idea slowly formed in his mind. After thinking briefly, he spent 2 fiendstone to make another bear trap. Then he spent 10 fiendstone to upgrade it to level 2. This time he chose the upgrade, faster ground spikes retraction. He made a copper pipe 1 meter thick, placed it over the ground spikes, then made a thinner copper pipe. Standing on the table, he kept striking the ground spikes under the thick pipe. With each strike, the ground spikes activated once. The pipe striking the ground spikes would be launched upward, producing thrust. Yes, he was going to build a car. The core idea was like an internal combustion engine. A crude ground spikes engine had taken shape. With a vehicle chassis, a drive shaft, gears and wheels, the piston straight back and forth motion could become rotation. Then he could make a crude vehicle. Its speed was hard to say. Ground spikes power and reset speed would limit it. Gears. But in this world, gears did not exist. Wait, his expression grew strange. Wasn't the warehouse still full of mantis fiend materials, the mantis arms? He had tested those things. They were quite sturdy. Chen Fan immediately jumped off the table, picked up the thick pipe and the ground spikes, then headed outside. If the experiment worked, every ruined station around the wasteland would be his to loot. Eternal night was still over 2 hours away. There was still enough time. After receiving orders, everyone in camp got busy. Once the whole camp was working, in about 2 hours, this world's first small car was born. Jomo could not wait to test it. He drove the crude wooden cart speeding into the wasteland outside camp. Woohoo! Everyone watched Jomo vanish into the distance and heard his excited shouts far away. It's that fast? Before long, Jomo returned to camp. He looked at Chen Fan, thrilled. Station master, with this thing, I can reach farther stations and bring back more fiendstone and supplies. Chen Fan glanced at Jomo. This is only the first prototype. For the next few days, have Chichong and Ale drive it around while farming in the day. See if anything goes wrong. Alright, it's almost dark. Those who should sleep, sleep. Those on wall duty, get up there. Dismissed. Half an incense stick later, endless darkness surged in again, swallowing the entire world. On the city wall, Chen Fan stood inside the crude rain shelter Chichong had built on the wall that day. He felt the cool night wind and fine rain. As he looked toward the grey fog beyond camp, would tonight be as calm as last night? They're here. Almost the instant night fell, Chen Fan saw figures in the grey fog as fiends emerged one after another. Monkey fiends, stilt fiends, and mantis fiend, along with an old friend. The female fiend in a sedan carried by 4 stilt fiends. But this time was different. Nearly 100 fleshworm fiend lay bound on the ground, writhing before the fiends. All set. Chen Fan turned to look at the 10 level 2 arrow towers on the wall, and the 2 level 3 arrow towers. He let out a small breath. They should hold. He still had over 300 fiendstone. If it went bad, he could upgrade the camp again. Then with a shrill mad laugh, she launched the assault. Stilt fiend over 3 meters tall came from the fog toward camp. They kept picking up speed. The moment they charged in, they grabbed nearby fleshworm fiend and hurled them at the wall with full force. Wall towers fired at once. Crossbow bolts struck the arcing fleshworm fiend with precision, bursting them into ghostly green flames, but some still slipped through. They slammed straight into the wall. As ghost green fluid burst open, the wall began to corrode. Soon the impact sites were pitted and scarred. They were using fleshworm fiend as grenades. Damn it. Chen Fan crouched low behind the parapet. He peered out at the explosions beyond the wall, unable to stop cursing. He finally knew what the female fiend had done last night. She had tailed the fleshworm fiend swarm and captured a batch to use as grenades. Under that attack, Chen Fan's group had little room to fight back. They kept behind the parapet. The rest was up to the arrow towers. This assault was ferocious. Some stilt fiend hurled fleshworm fiend, while others charged the wall, with mantis fiend and monkey head fiend behind. Arrow rainstorm, 1 level 3 arrow tower, kept launching volleys of bolts into the air, striking fiends that charged into the camp. Soon bodies piled up. The remaining 10 level 2 arrow towers kept firing as well. But just then, the ground began to rumble. The stilt fiend leader in the black fog entered the camp too. Each step the ground trembled. Also a stilt fiend, this leader was far stronger in its limbs. It grabbed 2 nearby mantis fiend, ran forward, and threw the mantis fiend into the air. They sailed over the wall into the camp's core. It kept repeating the move. Mantis fiend flew over the wall one after another. After crashing inside, the mantis fiend rolled up fast. Screeching, they raised their mantis arms and rushed up the stone steps toward Chen Fan. At the same time, many stilt fiend reached the base of the wall. They grabbed mantis fiend, using their mantis arms as battering rams to pound the wall with all their strength. To break through. For a moment, the camp was besieged. Danger closed in. It had fallen into deadly peril. Survive! Chen Fan roared. Then he quickly checked outside the wall. The fleshworm fiend had all been used up. This section of wall was badly corroded, but still stood. Many stilt fiends were attacking that weak point. The enhanced fire element level 3 arrow tower was sniping the advanced stilt fiend in the camp. The level 3 tower was powerful. Bolts rained down like hail. After 3 arrows hit, the stilt leader barely moved, before staggering to the ground. Stayed down. It was dead. With no thrower, the fiends by the wall were soon cleared out. Meanwhile, the other level 3 tower kept activating arrow rainstorm. Firing on both sides, it swiftly slaughtered the fiends rushing in. The camp looked like a boat shaking in a storm, but it was actually rock solid. All they had to do was survive. But just then, a mantis fiend burst from the shadows and leapt into the air, shrieking as its twin blades slashed at Chen Fan. In that critical instant, Limp Monkey charged forward with the Godslayer spear and blocked the strike. But the immense force still slammed Limp Monkey to the ground. Even so, he stopped the mantis fiend's ambush. The next moment, a bolt shot through the rain and struck true. Before it could attack again, the mantis fiend froze in midair. It fell onto the rain-soaked wall. After a few dozen breaths, the battle was over. Outside the wall lay fiends' corpses everywhere. One section of wall was about to give way. No living fiends remained inside the camp. Chen Fan quickly checked the others, then looked inside the wall. No one was hurt. Zhou Mo, who had been asleep, was awakened too. He stood panting with his broadsword. He had traded several blows with a mantis fiend, barely managing to protect himself. Fiends, beings like that, were not things humans could face head-on. Even a cultivator would struggle. Chen Fan looked at the sedan in the grey fog outside. By now, the fiends surrounding the camp tonight had been wiped out. Only the sedan remained. It was about to retreat. Chen Fan frowned slightly, watching the blood-red sedan withdraw into the grey fog. This female fiend was far too intelligent. If she escaped this time, she would bring even more fiends next time, but he had no good way to stop her. He could only watch her leave. The arrow towers could only attack targets inside the camp. The next moment, the four stilt fiend carrying the sedan backed away several meters, then suddenly charged toward the camp. They grew faster and faster, rushing into the camp with the sedan. The instant they entered, the sedan exploded. Countless shards stabbed into the ground. The four stilt fiend were blown apart as well. Ha 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 ha! A shrill, eerie, mad laugh swept over the entire camp. A female fiend stood barefoot on the ground, staring at the people on the wall. Her face was pale as snow, nothing like a living face. Her features were exquisite, like a masterpiece carved by a master craftsman. So beautiful. That was Chen Fan's first impression. Too beautiful to be a fiend's. More like a peerless beauty of the mortal world. She radiated noble, icy grace. In a daze, Chen Fan's thoughts went still. The world before him seemed to fall silent. But just then, a chill seeped into his neck. The rain and Zhou Mo's shout inside the wall jolted him awake. Station master. Inside the wall, Zhou Mo stood by the wooden hut with his broadsword. His face was tense as he shouted, trying to wake those on the wall. From his view, the station master and the others had gone into a trance. Clearly, they had encountered a hallucination fiend. Get down! Chen Fan was the first awake. He shoved the others beside him to the ground, hiding behind the parapet. Behind the female fiend, waterfall-like black hair stretched out and stabbed at them like lightning. But from the moment she entered the camp, the crossbows on the towers had been firing. Bolts shot out one after another, piercing the rainy night toward the female fiend outside. Most of the bolts were deflected by her whip-like hair, but there were many towers, and some bolts still hit. As long as Chen Fan and the others were not killed by that needle-like hair at once, she could not withstand the arrow towers. Clearly, she meant to endure the tower's damage, and strike the leader first. Once Chen Fan died, the arrow towers would stop instantly. Fiend fire would also fade and go out. However, he had awakened and dodged the attack. That left only death for the female fiend. The fire element level 3 arrow tower, built specifically to counter her, unleashed its full power. Bolt after bolt shot at the female fiend. They were too fast for her to dodge. They pierced through her body. No blood flowed from the holes. Only charred flesh remained. By then, the others had broken free of the illusion. Damn it! Good thing Zhou Mo was inside the camp and did not see the female fiend outside. He was able to wake the station master. Otherwise, who knows what might have happened. That female fiend could cast illusions. She was truly terrifying. Not a single fiend remained in the grey fog. You should go sleep first. Chen Fan looked at Zhou Mo as he came up the wall. You still have field duty tomorrow morning. Go sleep first. Leave this to us. Then he turned to Limp Monkey and the others. Clear the battlefield quickly. The night is still long. More fiends may still attack. After the past few days, the people in camp had grown well coordinated. At a single order, Limp Monkey and the others rushed down. They began digging fiendstone from fiends' corpses and picking up dropped treasures. They would leave fiend materials until dawn. Chen Fan repaired the damaged wall at once. After that, they took turns keeping watch at the hut on the wall. The night soon passed. Only a few dozen scattered fiends entered later that night. They posed no threat. Before long, dawn came. On the eternal night calendar in the wooden hut, another mark was crossed off. This was the 4th eternal night they had spent in the rainy season of the wilds. At daybreak, Zhou Mo took his men blades ready and set out again. They planned to recover resources from nearby ruined stations. After a hard fight, the spoils this time included plenty of fiendstone and 3 rare relics. One came from the stilt fiend leader. The other 2 came from a female fiend. One was an extremely rare blueprint. In the hut, Chen Fan sat by the stove watching the rain. To save resources back then, he had kept the inner camp too small. As the camp grew, space was running tight. Even towers barely fit. In a few days, he would need to expand. Then he tallied last night's gains. Monkey hide, mantis arms, and more. 478 fiendstone in total. 3 relics. Blueprints were among the rarest relics, and the paper-thin blueprint in his hand was a brand new building blueprint. Relic name, Altar. Relic grade, white. Relic effect, build an altar. The altar can heal wounds. Heal wounds. Chen Fan nodded thoughtfully. A very useful building, and not expensive to build. It only cost 10 Fiendstone. He'd build it in camp. The camp was getting too cramped. Now an altar needs space. He had to upgrade the Fiendfire soon and extend the walls outward, but that would cost a lot. He needed to finish testing the cart soon, then send Jomo to the ruined stations in the wasteland to bring back their Fiendstone. He looked at the 2 remaining relics. Relic name, torch. Relic grade, white. Relic effect, single-use relic. Once lit, it lasts 6 hours. It has level 1 Fiendfire effects. Light diameter, 1 meter. A portable Fiendfire. Useful outside the rainy season, but almost useless in the rain. The last relic from the female fiend. It was a green grade relic, a piece of skin. Relic name, fiend hide. Relic grade, green. Relic effect, a special fiend hide. Needs blood-fed fiend flower to reveal itself. Chen Fan frowned slightly. He looked at the palm-sized fiend hide. It looked ancient. He could faintly feel the traces of time. He didn't know this fiend flower or where to get it. For now, he could only put it away until he found some later. After the rains, he had to visit Zhangbei City. In the wasteland, news was too scarce. He needed to plan it carefully. But first, he had to survive the rain. Drowsy and dazed, he lay down and slept. With 3 hours left before eternal night, Chen Fan woke up. After a quick wash, he left the hut ready to strengthen the camp. He currently had 795 Fiendstone. First, he went to the camp's Fiendfire to check last night's consumption. Then he refilled it to 50 Fiendstone, then took out 50 more to reach level 3. Then a panel appeared before him. Fiendfire reached level 3. Save zone expanded to 50 meters in diameter. Please choose an upgrade path. 1. Save zone expands to 100 meters. 2. Greater deterrence against fiends. 3. Mutated effect. All camp buildings cost 1 less Fiendstone to build. Usable 10,000 times per day. Only active during the rainy season. Rare. Chen Fan stared at the panel in surprise. The third option glowed in rainbow light. He looked at that third upgrade path and his breathing quickened. Every building in the camp would cost 1 less Fiendstone to build. It sounded rather mediocre. After all, 1 meter of wall cost 20 Fiendstone. Reducing it by 1 Fiendstone only made it 19 Fiendstone. But for a module like Copper Pipe, 1 meter cost only 1 Fiendstone. Under this effect, that meant free, built at no cost. 10,000 uses daily, meaning he could build 10,000 1-meter copper pipes for free daily, only in the rainy season but still absurd. Without the slightest hesitation he chose the third upgrade path. This upgrade would boost the camp's strength on an epic scale. On the wall, Chen Fan rested both hands on the battlements and looked at the 50-meter safe zone. Ambition burned in his eyes. Feeling the chill of the rain, he could not help but grin. He planned between the two places to build a highway made of copper pipes. Fiend fire would flow through the pipes, keeping the road covered in fiend fire even at night, so travel could continue day and night. It would greatly speed up caravan transport and bring him massive income. In the past, in this region, all tolls had been collected by camps in the wasteland, but once the highway opened, all that income would be his. But how to protect that profit was another big problem. Doing this would surely threaten Zhangbei City's 3 major powers and provoke their retaliation. During the rainy season's golden window, he had to build enough strength. After the rainy season, destroy the 3 major powers and open the highway. But after laying over 100 meters of copper pipe, Chen Fan found things more complex than expected. Laying copper pipe was free, but he had to build each pipe himself. He could not hand the work to anyone else. If he laid it piece by piece, he would have to cross the wasteland many times. That would take forever. He had to finish developing the cart first, then drive it while laying the pipes and build his highway. Xichong, come here. I have a job for you. Chen Fan returned to camp and called Xichong from the fields to help. An hour later, Chen Fan looked pleased with his modified cart. This time, he named it Trike 2.0. Laying copper pipe by vehicle was much faster. Half an hour later, Chen Fan stood on the trike with both hands on the control bar, watching the copper pipes link up behind it. He smiled in satisfaction. With a vehicle to help, the speed was much better. In less than half an hour, he had laid 10 kilometers of copper pipe and used up today's free quota. After a few more runs like this, once the rainy season ended, the highway could open. After returning to camp, Chen Fan happily inspected the grounds to see what still needed improvement. His gaze finally stopped on a level 3 arrow tower. As the rainy nights passed, the fiends would keep growing stronger. He felt he needed a stronger arrow tower. Right after that, he went up onto the wall, spent 100 fiendstone, and upgraded the arrow tower without the arrow storm skill to level 4. The next moment, the arrow tower turned into a phantom and began shifting and collapsing until it compressed into a brown stone cube 1 meter on each side. It no longer looked like an arrow tower. On one side of the stone block, a dark rectangular slit appeared. It nearly merged with the wall. Through the dark opening, he could clearly see a cold gleaming crossbow embedded inside. Arrow tower upgraded to level 4. Upgraded into an arrow fort. Must be fixed in place. Cannot be moved freely. Power increased. Please choose an upgrade path. 1. Increase fire rate. 2. Increase power. 3. Reduced energy cost. Chen Fan studied the arrow fort before him. After the upgrade, it took up far less space. It was sturdier and more concealed. He chose increased fire rate. This tower had gained power several times already. It needed more speed. Then he gave the attack command. Flaming bolts wrapped in scorching fire shot from the crossbow inside the dark slit and struck the wasteland 30 meters outside the wall. He could not tell if its power had changed, but its fire rate was clearly much faster. Just then, He frowned slightly and saw Jomo stumbling through the rain toward camp. Soon Jomo dashed into the camp and came panting before Chen Fan. If nothing had gone wrong, then something had definitely gone wrong with Jomo. Ran into fiends? Jomo trembled as he said, "On my way back I ran into a group of people having an orgy out in the wasteland. The moment I saw them from afar, I turned and ran without hesitation. We're in the heart of the wilds. No real people should be here, so they had to be imposter fiends. The instant they saw me, they all went mad and chased me. Luckily I'm a level 2 cultivator and ran fast. But my young brother was a little too slow. Those imposter fiends caught him, tore him apart and swallowed him. Even the resources we picked up from other camps today were dropped there in the panic." Station master. Chen Fan patted Jomo's shoulder and said nothing. Only after a long silence did he look at the arrow fort beside him and the trike parked in the camp. He suddenly thought of a way to extend an architect's range of influence. "This is no time to grieve. Come on, I'll take you back to kill them." Kill them? Jomo did not grasp what he meant. Come on. Chen Fan came down from the wall and went to the edge of the camp. He looked at the wooden trike parked in the wilds and immediately built an arrow tower mounting it on the vehicle bed. When it reached level 3, the upgrade path he chose was for its bolts to carry lightning, paralyzing enemies and dealing chain damage to up to 3 nearby creatures. And when it reached level 4, he chose increased fire rate. Soon the arrow tower became an arrow fort. Its size shrank several fold and it embedded into the wooden trike. This was a fusion of arrow tower and trike. He called it arrow cart. "Get on, you handle the power lever." Chen Fan jumped on first and stood before the control lever. He looked at the stunned Jomo. "Time is tight. Stop standing there." Okay, Jomo wasted no time. He jumped onto the cart and followed Chen Fan as they left camp, lost in the rain. Zhongbei Chen Family Station 37. It was not far from Wang Kui's old station. Over a slope, they saw the imposters. They were gathered at Wang Kui's old station. Over 20 imposters were clearly visible, doing unspeakable things in the rain. Chen Fan stood at the front of the trike, glaring at the scene before him. In the rainy wasteland, every worker was precious. One death now meant he would have to pull someone off duty to help Jomo. Just then, the imposters noticed them too. With a piercing shriek, they roared and charged at Chen Fan and Jomo. In the blink of an eye, they were less than 30 meters away, yet the arrow bastion on the trike did nothing. Outside the camp, they could not activate. Chen Fan waited no longer. He crushed 3 fiendstone pieces in his palm. A shape of white lines gathered on the truck bed as fiend fire took form. The imposters had now entered the camp's range. The silent arrow bastion flashed with white light in its dark muzzle. Then, whoosh! Bolts wrapped in lightning flew like thunder god spears, shooting at top speed toward the fiends about to reach the trike. The first imposter struck, froze in place at once. Its body was charred. It staggered a few steps, then collapsed. At the same time, a flash of lightning burst from its body and hit the 3 nearest. In an instant, the 3 caught in the blast were reduced to charcoal. But Chen Fan narrowed his eyes and looked into the rain at imposters from the hut. There were over 30 of them, many more, and the ones from the wooden house were clearly younger. If those outside were middle-aged, these new ones from inside were young. So that was it. He looked at one middle-aged female and turned the trike around thoughtfully. He kept pulling away from them while keeping them in range of his arrow tower, killing those at the front of the charge. After all the older ones were killed, the tower stopped. He stopped attacking. Instead, he made several bear traps and set them along the trike's path. Alive only. They had some wit, but not much. One after another, they chased the circling trike and stepped into a bear trap. Pinned there, they roared helplessly. After a short while, the trike stopped. Not one imposter remained standing. All the older imposters were dead. The young ones were all caught in bear trap jaws, struggling with savage madness in their eyes. On the trike, Chen Fan looked at the wooden house in Wang Kui's camp. He had circled the house several times, but no imposter came out.
Imposter hatchlings were inside. Go check it out. I'll cover you from outside. Yes.
Jomo tightened his grip on the broadsword and took a deep breath. He jumped down from the trike, advanced on the wooden house, and kicked the door open. Within a few breaths, he hurried back to the trike and reported,
Station Master, imposter fiend young, confirmed. They can't even crawl yet. Their eyes are terrifying.
He shuddered as he spoke. The sight truly scared him. The moment he entered, imposter fiend hatchling stared right at him. He feared he would dream of it tonight. That explains it. Chen Fan looked at the trapped imposters outside. When they saw Jomo rush into the wooden house, they grew even wilder. He grasped the rainy season now. The rainy season might be when fiends reproduce. If so, fiends being violent in the rain made sense. They would also become fiercely territorial, allowing no outsiders near. That was why fiends avoided fiend fire in the dry season. Yet in the rainy season, they rushed madly into fiend fire.
Back to camp. Bring the men here. Take all these imposters back.
Alive? Jomo froze for a moment. He glanced at the trapped imposters nearby. If we only want their fiendstone, we can do it now. No need to bring more men. Alive. Chen Fan nodded lightly. Normal humans carry for 9 months. But that female imposter had only just finished mating when her belly swelled rapidly. She was already about to give birth. If we use that breeding speed, we may obtain more fiendstone. With 1 incense stick left before eternal night, Chen Fan returned with Jomo, Limp Monkey, and others. One imposter fiend after another was strung together with rope and dragged back to camp. Then he went to an open area outside the wall. He spent 200 fiendstone to build a square enclosure. 5 meters by 5 meters like a cage. He planned to raise imposter fiends there. To be safe, he built a level 2 arrow tower on the pen wall to keep the imposter fiends from escaping. After all that, Chen Fan returned to the camp wall. He looked at the darkening sky and waited patiently for eternal night. The trike fitted with a level 4 arrow bastion was also parked outside the wall, serving as part of tonight's defense. Before long, darkness surged in from the horizon. Eternal night had fallen. Chen Fan and the others kept watch on the wall. Zhou Mo had already crawled into bed. He looked at the floor bed beside him, where someone had slept last night, now empty. After a long silence, he picked up his pen and wrote today's diary.
Today is the 5th night since the rainy season began. More than half a month remains. Ergu, who had always followed me, died in an imposter fiend's jaws at dusk. Can the camp really survive the rainy season? Heaven only knows.
After writing, he hid the diary under his pillow. He stared blankly at the wooden ceiling, lost in thought. Meanwhile, Zhangbei. Tonight, the city was in chaos. A vast golden eggshell covered the entire city, but now it faced a brutal test. Fleshworm fiends came to Zhangbei. They sought to dye the world green.
Move, move, move! Where are the Chen family guest elders? My wall's about to give. It needs repairs now!
Amid the clamor, the wild wolf gang climbed the wall. They stared into the dark beyond, at fleshworm fiends ramming the walls. Pale-faced, he took a deep breath and slammed the token onto the wall. Instantly, the walls around Zhangbei City glowed with black light. Thick steel plates etched with strange runes wrapped around the entire wall. It held. Under the fleshworm fiend's blasts, the wall had been near collapse, but now it held again.
Hold the line! Once the wind shifts, those fleshworm fiends will retreat! Hang on a little longer, brothers! Are the Chen family architects here yet?
We sent several men to Chen Manor. No word back yet.
Damn it!
The bandit-like man stared at the endless fiends outside, gripping his blade with a twisted face. Fury burned in his eyes. Tonight, as Zhangbei City faced ruin, only his wild Wolfgang brother stood with Zhangbei Market's forces. He even saw many merchants bring out their hoarded fiendstone for architects to build arrow towers, just to survive tonight. Yet no one from Zhangbei Chen family or Chu Heiwang family came. He knew exactly what they were thinking. Their own manors had stronger walls. Why would Zhangbei City's fall matter to them? They only had to guard their own land. They would not waste fiendstone or treasures on Zhangbei City. Of the 3 powers, the Wild Wolf Gang had its own turf and its own walls too. He could have fallen back as well. He had no big business these years. Most days, he lived on protection money from the shops. Since he took their protection money, he had to protect them. The rule.
Boss, what do we do now? The Chen family and Wang family clearly aren't coming. Maybe we should pull back too. We can't hold it alone.
The Wild Wolf Gang leader turned to the old man in the rain behind him. He was their level 5 architect.
Elder Zhu, what do you think? I follow your lead, boss. Whatever you order, I will do.
Good. Woohoo! Open the stores! Bring out all the Wild Wolf Gang's fiendstone and treasures! I'll defend this damn city to the death! Yes!
Opening the stores meant staking everything. After this battle, even if Zhangbei survived, the Wild Wolf Gang would be no more. The news soon spread along the wall. Anyone in the city with fiendstone who saw Wild Wolf Gang men rushed into the store and handed them everything they had. Everyone knew the gang defended them. The Wild Wolf Gang could still retreat. They had no retreat. If the wall fell, they died. In Zhangbei City, Chen Manor, Council Hall, several elders had gathered.
The Wild Wolf Gang leader does have guts. He just isn't very rational. Sigh. In this rainy season, the city is bound to fall. So what if they hold tonight? The rainy season has over 20 days left. It's all pointless. Holding our own ground is the right choice.
Just then, Patriarch Chen entered the hall. As soon as he sat, he spoke.
The Wild Wolf Gang has emptied its stores to defend Zhangbei City. They'll live or die with the masses. Their courage is admirable. I respect him as a man of resolve. The people's will is united now. With that strength, they may truly hold tonight.
Patriarch, do you mean we should defend the city too? Ride the momentum and salvage our reputation?
No. Even if they hold tonight, the rainy season has over 20 days left. How will they hold the second half? They are wasting the city's resources. Have every Chen family disciple change into Wild Wolf Gang clothes. Go collect the fiendstone and treasures from the people, especially near Zhangbei Market. As for the people's safety, I don't care. I care about only one thing. The Chen family must grow stronger. Everything is for the Chen family.
The elders exchanged glances and saw the same turmoil. But after a long pause, they all nodded. Yes, Patriarch. After the elders withdrew, Patriarch Chen sat alone in the council hall. In just a few days, he had aged a lot. Decades ago, after Chen Fan's mother died of illness, the family had no architect left. He devoted himself to the family's growth and had no time for Chen Fan. What he never expected was his useless eldest son had become an architect. If Chen Fan survived the rains and agreed to serve the Chen family, he would back him fully. But if Chen Fan resented his neglect and refused to return, this threat had to be killed early. In Chen Manor, after the elders left the council hall, they exchanged a few looks. The first elder rasped, "The Patriarch is aging."
The Chen family needs a new helmsman. If Chen Fan survives this rainy season, I think we should bring him back as Patriarch.
Yes.
The elders offered little comment. They only nodded in the rain. No one mentioned Chen Quan. By bloodline, Chen Fan was the rightful heir. By strength, if Chen Fan survived, the reigns far above Chen Quan, backed by his clan, as long as Chen Fan truly survived, and would lead the family. Before long, dawn broke. As the eternal night receded, one more passed. Chen Fan stood on the wall and relaxed at last. Few fiends came. The few that did ran into camp as if fleeing for life. From that, he could tell. The wasteland was restless. Camp edge. Stay safe out there. Chen Fan stood outside the camp watching Zhou Mo and a young boy drive the trike. The boy had once followed Scarface Wang. Chen Fan had assigned him to work with Zhou Mo. The trike's performance tests were complete. It could now reach farther scrap stations and bring back their resources. Okay, Zhou Mo nodded firmly. His joy was gone. His brother's death yesterday had taught him that even by day, the wilds in the rainy season were never truly safe. After seeing Zhou Mo off, Chen Fan glanced at the busy crowd and went back to sleep. Just then Chief Chichong shouted from the fields, "It's blooming! Limp Monkey's flower is blooming!" Chen Fan froze. Only then did he remember it. Smiling, he walked to the field to take a look. When this field was first opened, Limp Monkey had taken a seed from the house and buried it. Later, the seed really sprouted into a bud. He even built the bud a crude little shelter. Pretty nice. Chen Fan stood smiling by the field, looking at the flower in the corner. But very soon his smile froze. Relic name: Blood-fed fiend flower. Relic grade: green. Relic effect: mature. Can serve as a special forging material. After a long silence, he quietly took out a piece of fiend hide. It had dropped from the female fiend after she died. On this blank fiend hide, the panel clearly showed one line: water with blood-fed fiend flower, to reveal its contents. He had never known where to find a blood-fed fiend flower. He never expected it to be so far away, yet right before his eyes.
Station Master.
Chichong said eagerly, "I've never seen this kind of flower. It must be rare and valuable. After the rainy season, we might trade it at Zhangbei Market for fiendstone. It looks special after all." "It is special." After a pause, Chen Fan smiled. "Give Limp Monkey an extra drumstick at mealtime. Give yourself one too." Then he used 2 wooden sticks to pick up the flower at the field's edge and spread the fiend hide on the barren ground. With a little pressure, blood-red sap trickled down the stem onto the fiend hide. Soon, no more sap flowed out. The once vivid flower instantly withered and lost all life. Chen Fan crouched by the field, staring fixedly at the fiend hide. Once the sap touched the fiend hide, lines of writing slowly appeared. "Last year in rain, we met and parted. Today the rain has passed. A year is gone. Beneath the cold pool, white bones soak in the midnight moon. Beneath the embroidered robe, black hair coils through 9 autumns of smoke. I tore my skin to make you armor. I cut my soul as silk to bind new scars. Then umbrella ribs rang through heaven and earth. A tide of fiends rose across the wilds. So it was an old love coming through the rain. We meet again, yet no, not faces pale as snow. Rain has worn my beauty 1,000 times. All my life, I waited only for you." Then the relics panel changed as well. Relic name: fiend hide. Relic grade: green. Relic effect: a special piece of fiend hide, crafted by a high-level fiend. Carried close, it can block a fatal blow. Chen Fan looked at the lines on the fiend hide. After a long blank silence, he sighed softly. His head suddenly began to ache. Honestly, he had not sunk that much into this station. Maybe he should move out early. The poem was not hard to understand. Its meaning was roughly this: the female fiend he had killed had no small amount of intelligence. Last rainy season, she met a male fiend, and the two fell for each other. After they parted that season, she tore off a piece of her own skin and used other methods to forge this relic. It was a defensive relic. As for that male fiend, when umbrella ribs rang through heaven and earth, and the tide of fiends rose across the wilds, it could only be a fiend king. He was not just powerful, but also commanded a great force. This woman had waited for him in the wasteland all this time. Maybe this rainy season that male fiend would bring an army to marry her. But the female fiend had already died by Chen Fan's hand. By then Chen Fan turned toward the warehouse. He had skinned her and stored the hide in the garage. "I'm screwed. Oh, lovesick female fiend. If you were waiting for your perfect man in the rainy season, why not just hide quietly in some corner? Why did you keep coming after me? Now look, you've left me one hell of a mess." Chen Fan rubbed his temples, his head aching. That fiend king would likely return to the wasteland this season. To face him, Chen Fan needed every preparation. At the very least, the camp's defenses were far from enough. After inspecting the camp, Chen Fan returned to the cabin to sleep. When he woke again, there were nearly 6 hours until eternal night fell. Chen Fan built another brand new trike and took Chichong out of camp into the eternal night to keep laying his highway.
Station Master.
Just then, Chichong stood on the trike, working the power lever. He wiped sweat from his forehead, hesitated for a long while, then spoke hoarsely. "There's something I wasn't sure I should tell you. The night before last, I happened to notice Scarface Wang's men had hidden some fiendstone. They didn't hand it all in when they joined the camp." Chen Fan frowned slightly but did not stop working. After a moment of silence, Chen Fan asked, "Does Scarface Wang know?" "I don't think Scarface Wang knows." "Did you tell anyone else?" "I told no one." "Good." Chen Fan nodded lightly and kept working. "I understand. Don't tell anyone about this." "Understood." Chichong nodded heavily and kept pushing the power lever. He said no more about it. After finishing today's copper pipe, Chen Fan and Chichong returned to camp together. Beside the original field, he built another level 1 farm and gave it to Chichong for transplanting crops from other stations. Only then did he begin today's patrol. Eternal night was about to fall. Less than 2 hours remained. Chen Fan stood on the wall looking at the dim fiendstone in his palm and sighed softly. Yesterday, he had asked Jomo for a cultivation art. With it, one could absorb fiendstone and increase one's cultivation, but according to Jomo, Chen Fan had calculated that even with enough fiendstone and several hours of training each day, it would take at least 6 months to become a level 2 cultivator. It was not worth the cost. Still, it was better than nothing. Level 2 was better than level 1. Any boost to his body was a boost. Just then, Chen Fan suddenly thought of something. He turned around and looked thoughtfully at the cabin by the fiend fire. He had never upgraded that cabin. After all, it was just shelter from wind and rain. But perhaps he could try upgrading it. Maybe there would be an option to speed up cultivation. Once decided, he acted. He immediately went down from the wall and walked to the cabin outside the wall used as a warehouse. Upgrading the cabin to level 2 needed only 10 fiendstone. As he crushed 10 fiendstone, milky white liquid flowed through the air. The cabin's wooden structure began to grow and gain some stonework. Overall, it looked sturdier. Then a panel appeared before him. Cabin upgraded to level 2, more durable. Please choose an upgrade path. 1. Restful sleep. 2. Peace of mind. 3. Increased pregnancy chance. Ineffective on fiends. Chen Fan calmly looked at the panel. If he had a fixed territory and a fixed population, choosing the third upgrade path would effectively raise the birth rate, but he chose peace of mind. For a warehouse, this was one of the few useful options. At least when entering and leaving it would help keep the mind calm. He took out another 20 fiendstone and upgraded the cabin to level 3. The cabin changed again. Not a trace of wood remained. It had fully become a stone house. Both its defense and shelter visibly improved. It also went from 1 floor to 2 floors. A full 2-story building rising above the wall. Cabin upgraded to level 3. Upgraded into a stone house. More durable. Please choose an upgrade path. 1. Expanded area. Adds optional rooms such as kitchen, toilet, and bath. 2. Add dustless array. Keeps the interior dust free. 3. Add shadow array. The Lord may view every corner inside at any time. 3 renovation paths. 1 was fine furnishing. 1 was whole house cleaning. 1 was whole house surveillance. For improving quality of life, all were good choices. He chose the third upgrade path. For a warehouse, he did not need dustlessness for now. The shadow array might be better. After all this was done, night was about to fall. Noise came from outside the camp. Jomo had returned on the crude trike. He led Scarface Wang's man inside the walls and came to report to Chen Fan. Inside the rain shelter on the wall, Station Master Jomo looked thrilled. With your trike, Station Master, I reached several stations today and brought back supplies, plus 578 fiendstone. Chen Fan looked toward the trike outside. Behind the trike, a flatbed cart was tied to it. Supplies were piled high on the cart. For the camp, this was a huge haul. In less than an hour, eternal night would fall. That was cutting it too close. Do not stay out that long again. Stay safe. Got it, Jomo said with a broad grin. Good work. Go get some rest. Leave tonight to us. Right. Chen Fan looked at Scarface Wang behind Jomo. Leave your man here. I want to talk to him. What is your name? Chen Fan stood on the wall, looking at the boy in the rain. He smiled, his tone gentle. Dayu. Your surname? I have none, the boy said nervously. He bowed his head. I came from a mountain village by the sea. We lived by fishing. My father was a fisherman. He hoped for Dayu every day, so he gave me this name. A fisherman? Chen Fan looked into the rain. The sea north of the wasteland? Yes. Who built your fiend fire? Natural fiend fire. Few fiends lived there. Steep cliffs rose on every side. The village sat in the ravine below. Normally, in rain, we blocked the exit and got through it safely. So you left because you did not want to follow your father's path? The boy shook his head. He looked downcast. One rainy season, countless fiends flew down the cliffs into the village. It was wiped out. I escaped. Chen Fan watched the boy calmly. He was not pitying the boy's past. He was only curious. In that case, how had the boy survived? The boy seemed triggered now. His body kept trembling. Fear and pain flooded his eyes. He was close to breaking down. Fear can be contagious. Just looking into those eyes sent a chill down his back. When the flesh worm horde hit, female fiend struck. The boy had not shown such fear. Only panic and unease. The camp had few people, though he had not known the boy's name. Whenever something major happened, he watched everyone and see their true nature. At such times, it was hard to pretend. That was why he had not made an example of the boy. From what he had seen, the boy was not selfish to the point of stupidity. He had a rough guess, but he stopped there. This place is safe. Chen Fan placed a hand on the boy's head, ruffling his rain-matted messy hair. He smiled. Let the past stay in the past. We have to look ahead. This is your new home. Alright, go rest. The boy calmed down a little, then turned and walked down in a daze. But as he stepped onto the stairs, the boy suddenly looked back at Chen Fan. Station Master, my father said that too. We have to look ahead. But why must people always look ahead? It may be better, but who knows it will be better. What if it brings a greater tragedy? Chen Fan was silent. He looked at the boy blurred by the rain, and gave a soft laugh. He could tell the boy's state was not right, as if fighting something. This was no time for preaching. The boy froze. He seemed shocked by such crude words. After a while, he suddenly laughed. Tears glimmered in his eyes. Station Master, won't you kill me? Why would I kill you? Chen Fan smiled calmly. His fingers had been brushing the rain-wet bluestone, then slowly stopped. I heard your talk with Chi Chong. He told you I was hiding fiendstone. I expected death. Lightning split the night. Darkness surged in from the horizon like a tide. In that flash, he saw the boy's tearful smile. pale and hopeless. How did you know? Chen Fan asked softly. I can look backward. I can only look backward. I am not a normal cultivator. I am a night watcher. Another bolt flashed before darkness swallowed all. The boy shook his head. Black hair spilled down like a waterfall with starlight. His voice turned fragile. Eyes reddened, shining with tears. He looked up at Chen Fan and forced a heartbreaking smile. Chen Fan looked at Dayu before him. He frowned. You are a girl. Chen Fan stood on the wall, frowning hard at Dayu. He could indeed see traces of a girl, but she was flat and young, hardly a beauty. Besides, Night Watcher. This was the first special cultivator he had met. He focused on Dayu again. I am curious what a Night Watcher can do. Dayu took a deep breath. My memory is a little hazy. It is from when I was 99. Chen Fan reached into his pocket blankly. He needed a cigarette right now. Only curling smoke could settle the mess in his chest. So how old are you this year? I am 18. I was born a Night Watcher. I was 100 when I was born, like a nearly decayed old woman, crawling out of my mother's belly. My mother died in childbirth. To keep people from pointing at me, my father took me away to a camp. The Lord there valued my father. My father thought he had been recognized. Only later did he learn the Lord valued me. The Lord knew I was a Night Watcher. When the camp faced destruction, the Lord activated me. After I was activated, I wiped out the fiend horde and the camp as well. Chen Fan looked at Dayu oddly, trying to tell if she was rambling. You destroyed it all by yourself? Yes, tell me how he activated you. Is there some switch on you? Chen Fan looked Dayu up and down. No. Dayu shook her head, choosing her words carefully. A Night Watcher is activated by a will to protect. When I am in despair, if I want to protect something, immense power erupts and destroys the crisis before me. The price is my lifespan, and I cannot tell friend from foe. I saw father climb the wall and nearly die to fiends. In panic and despair, everything went black. I knew nothing after that. When I woke again, dawn had come. The camp had been razed. Corpses covered the ground. Only my father sat beside me, saying he would take me home. After I woke, I was no longer an old woman. I had become a grown young woman. I also learned about Night Watchers. I knew clearly I was 27 then. So later, you returned to that seaside village north of the wasteland? Chen Fan seemed to have guessed something, and kept asking. Yes, Dayu lowered her head again. We lived in the village for years. Those years were happy. Until one rainy season, fiends fell into the village from the cliffs. Countless villagers died. Father was in mortal danger too. I was activated again. After dawn, when I woke up, everyone was dead. Father was dead too. When I woke, I was 19. After that, I wandered everywhere until I met Brother Wang and joined Zhangbei Chen Family Station 36. I wanted to protect those around me, but I killed them with my own hands. After the second activation, more information surfaced in my mind, as if I had always known it. If I do not want to be forced to activate, I must keep 10 Fiendstone on me, to suppress myself. That night, I was not hiding Fiendstone on purpose. It was just, if I handed over the Fiendstone. She did not finish. Dayu said no more. But the meaning was clear. The whole camp he had worked so hard to build would be razed instantly. After Dayu's third activation, Chen Fan was silent for a long time before letting out a long breath. He looked toward the grey fog outside and muttered, "This world is still too dangerous. The camp is still too weak. Besides fiends, these messy cultivators are not easy to handle either." Once he understood the situation, he finally knew why Dayu seemed so childlike. She had only lived 5 or 6 years in all. She was no different from a child. He also finally knew where the fear and pain in Dayu's eyes came from. Destroying one's own village by hand had to be painful. Go back and rest. Follow Zhou Mo on duty tomorrow. Work hard. Okay, Dayu may never have told anyone this. Now that she had said it all, she was clearly much lighter. She looked up at Chen Fan and said earnestly, "I will protect you. A Night Watcher's purpose is to protect." Chen Fan watched Dayu leave. He scratched his head. He seemed to have forgotten to ask how Dayu had heard him and Chichong talking. Forget it. He would ask tomorrow. Then Limp Monkey and the others climbed the wall. They all watched Dayu leave. Though they had not heard the talk, they had seen Dayu's long black hair fall loose. And the station master had talked to her for quite a while. Station master, she is a girl. Chen Fan did not mention the Night Watcher. Her family is all dead. She is the only one left. Limp Monkey and the others nodded in understanding. Just then, a familiar rustling sound came from outside the camp. It was the sound of crawling fiends passing through. They are here. Chen Fan looked at the grey fog with faint excitement. That sounds like over 100 fiends. We can finally have a small feast. He badly needed enough fiendstone to build up the camp. Killing fiends was the fastest way to get fiendstone. However, the next moment, his smile slowly froze. Beyond the camp's grey mist, a dozen pale men and women in white were slowly walking toward the camp. Anything in the memory bank? They exchanged looks and shook their heads. They looked like imposter fiend, but they never carried lanterns. Not common wasteland fiends. Mourner fiend. Chen Fan named the unknown fiends. He hated unknown fiends. It meant he didn't know what they could do. No mistakes. Just then, the leading mourner fiend stepped into camp range. Whoosh! All arrow towers activated at once. A crossbow bolt shot out through the rain and hit its forehead. The fiend swayed. Blood sprayed out. It collapsed. Is that all they've got? Chen Fan frowned. That bolt was only fired by the level 2 tower at the farm. If that's all they've got, however many come, just bring fiendstone. But the next moment, the fallen mourner fiend suddenly twitched, writhed, and split. When it rose again, it had become 2 mourner fiend. Death split it. He grasped their trick at once. Of the two Mourner Fiend after the split, only the original still held a lantern. The split-off Mourner Fiend had no lantern, so the lantern's power was splitting. After that split, the lantern's glow had clearly dimmed a little. Bolts fired again. Both Mourner Fiend fell together. The split-off one dropped on the spot and lay still. But the lantern-bearing Mourner Fiend split into another Mourner Fiend after death. The lantern dimmed again. Got it. Hopefully the split-off Mourner Fiend also have Fiendstone. Chen Fan took a deep breath and looked at the growing number entering camp range. All arrow towers activated together. He bellowed, "Defend! Tonight would be a hard fight." Luckily, he had many towers. He also had enough Fiendstone left. These Mourner Fiend didn't seem able to break walls fast. It seemed easier than the Fleshworm Fiend tied. Maybe he'd get a full meal. The towers on the wall began to roar. Crossbow bolts threw rain and struck the Mourner Fiend entering camp range. They fell, they rose, they split. The Mourner Fiend kept multiplying. More Mourner Fiend emerged from the grey mist into camp. Chen Fan suddenly frowned. From the wall he looked beyond the camp. Mourner Fiend came from all sides and filled the camp. He figured his two fields might not survive the night. Then the level 3 tower beside him flashed white at the top. Arrow rainstorm. Countless bolts shot into the sky like bamboo spikes covering the area before the wall and clearing out a blank zone. But just then a frontmost Mourner Fiend reached the wall. Pale, blank-faced, it raised its white lantern and smashed the wall. Down, up, another swing. As it raised it for a third strike, a bolt pierced its brow. The instant it fell, the white lantern's glow died out completely. It no longer split. Chen Fan leaned over the wall and looked at the spot struck twice. 2 palm-sized dents had appeared. They didn't affect the foundation. The wall was a full 3 meters thick. Let them chip away. It would take a lot to destroy it. But as more and more Mourner Fiend passed through the arrow rain line and reached the foot of the wall, they smashed their white lanterns into the blue stone. More and more dents appeared on the wall. From all sides, the camp was surrounded. Looking out, Mourner Fiend were even lining up in the grey mist. There were too many of them. They were slow, so they didn't push. They jammed the grey mist like traffic. More Mourner Fiend clearly waited in the eternal night beyond. The pressure was rising. Luckily, he had saved plenty of Fiendstone. 8:45. Fiendstone should be enough for tonight. The next moment, the 4 walls became phantom walls made of white lines. This repair required 7 Fiendstone. Repair. When the phantom structure solidified again, the broken white lines reconnected. The dents smashed into the wall by Mourner Fiend instantly repaired themselves. On the wall, Limp Monkey and the others tied spears and broadsword to poles and kept stabbing downward. Chen Fan turned toward the altar in the camp. This building was used to heal injuries. He figured the principle should be universal. Fiendstone repaired his walls. Fiendstone also healed injuries. Then in theory, the altar should be able to repair the wall too. The theory held. Time to test it. Today's free quota was used up. As several Fiendstone were crushed, phantom copper pipes appeared in the camp and solidified on the ground, linking the altar to the wall. Click. A faint crisp sound rang out. Milky white liquid flowed from the altar along the copper pipes to the wall's base. Bang! A Mourner Fiend under the wall had just raised its white lantern and smashed it into the wall. The dent had barely appeared before it could swing again. When it quickly repaired itself, it worked. Chen Fan stood on the wall and leaned out to watch. Excitement flashed in his eyes. It really worked. That meant if the altar held enough Fiendstone, his wall would repair itself without anyone operating it. Just then, boom, a wall collapsed. That was, the farm wall had fallen. The imposter fiend inside the farm rushed out like wild horses mixed in among the Mourner Fiends and pushed toward the wall. How? Chen Fan's brow tightened. He had been about to extend the altar's pipes to the farm wall. With the Mourner Fiend's attack power, how could that wall fall so fast? Then he understood why. A big one had come. Beyond the camp's grey mist, an old hunched Mourner Fiend stood outside with an eerie green lantern. Its eyes were vacant. Nearby Mourner Fiend all avoided it, leaving a small empty space that stood out sharply. Before anyone could react, the Mourner Fiend raised its eerie green lantern again. An arm-thick beam of green light shot out and struck another farm wall dead on. The 3-meter-thick wall instantly gained a deep crater. Another eerie green beam fired out. That wall slowly collapsed as well and became rubble. Insane. Chen Fan's face darkened, his breathing growing ragged. Once again, he felt the despair from the night the Fleshworm Fiend tide struck. This thing. 2 green beams could destroy a wall. Even if his walls repaired themselves, he didn't have enough Fiendstone for that. He needed time to think. But that thing's eerie green lantern would not wait. Another eerie green beam struck another farm wall dead on. He had little time left to think. It stood outside camp range. The arrow towers could not hit it at all. This was his first time seeing fiends attack the wall from within camp range. Boom! Another green beam shot out. The farm walls collapsed on all sides. His farm was gone. Then the thing turned its gaze toward him. It raised that eerie green lantern again. A green beam shot from the lantern. A violent tremor shook him. A huge crater was blasted into the wall below. It repaired itself in a flash. The repair speed was still fast. But damn, Fiendstone was low. Stay calm. Chen Fan took a deep breath. He forced himself to stay calm. He looked outside the camp. The mourner raised its lantern. Then he pulled out 10 level 2 Fiendstone. He crushed them. Fiendfire reached level 4. Safe range expanded to 100 meters. Its deterrence against fiends increased. Please choose an upgrade path. 1. Expand safe range to 200 meters. 2. Slightly increase deterrence against fiends. 3. Slightly reduce camp crop growth time. He quickly scanned the options. Without much thought, he chose the first upgrade. Fiendfire's range reached 200 meters. Then, the ready level 4 arrow fort opened fire. A flaming crossbow bolt tore through the rain over the Mourner Fiend. It struck the lantern holding Mourner Fiend dead on. To him, the moment seemed to slow. He held his breath. Only when the Mourner Fiend fell hard backward to the ground did Chen Fan finally smile. Perfect. However, Chen Fan's fresh smile slowly froze. No way. Fear flashed in Chen Fan's eyes as he muttered. The Mourner Fiend holding the green lantern had split. It split into 2 Mourner Fiend leaders. Before he could react, both Mourner Fiend raised their green lanterns. 2 green beams shot out. They hit the wall beneath him almost together. Boom! The wall beneath him was destroyed. His prized automatic wall repair system had no time to work. A 3-meter breach appeared in the wall. A mass of Mourner Fiend poured inside. Since the camp was built, the wall fell for the first time. Master! Limp Monkey's anxious shout came from atop the wall. The instant the green beams came, everyone on the wall dodged aside. Chen Fan wiped rain from his face. Across the breach, he shouted to Limp Monkey's group, "Hold the stone steps. Mourners can't climb walls. Even if the wall is breached, as long as we hold the inner steps, we'll be safe for now. I'll see how many damn times you can split." The level 4 arrow fort fired again. 2 Mourner Fiend leaders fell once more. No, they soon became 4 and stood up again. Each Mourner Fiend leader held a green lantern. 4 green beams merged into one pillar. It blasted toward the wall where Limp Monkey stood. The wall collapsed again. After the wall fell, it shot straight at the cabin. Boom! The cabin fell too. Fuck! Chen Fan could not help cursing. Watching the camp he built get destroyed felt like his heart was bleeding, but he had no time for emotion. A Mourner Fiend was smashing its lantern at Fiendfire. Every building could fall. Fiendfire can't. If it shattered, every building would fail. That meant death. Shoot the limbs! Chen Fan shouted the order to the arrow towers. He only had to stop them from splitting. He looked out. The 4 Mourner Fiend leaders had both arms struck by bolts. They were pinned down, stuck fast. Luckily, they did not move. Otherwise, they would be hard to hit. However, then he saw the nearby Mourner Fiend grunts step forward and smash their own leaders dead with lanterns. Then the Mourner Fiend leaders split again. 8 eerie green beams hit the wall below him. Yes, 8. This one's splitting rule was different. It was fucking exponential. I'm dead. I'm dead. Chen Fan's lips went pale. He fled along the wall in the rainy night. He crushed Fiendstone fast. He built a ring of walls to protect Fiendfire in the center. He also repaired the blasted wall. As the wall's illusion solidified, the breach was sealed. This thing's strength could attack Zhangbei City. He believed even Zhangbei City could barely withstand it. Brother! Brother! Just then, a sobbing girl's voice reached his ear. It mingled with the rain as if both far away and beside him. Again? Chen Fan's face changed at the sound. He quickly looked outside the wall. He saw no female fiend anywhere. Then he realized Dayu behind him was calling him. Her eyes were full of fear yet strangely determined. He instantly understood Dayu's intent. Not yet, not yet. Chen Fan instantly knew what Dayu was thinking. He grabbed Dayu and ran back toward the newly built wall. He had figured it out. These things were targeting him. He could not run elsewhere. If the arrow towers were destroyed, even with new walls built, there would be no defenses left. Start it later. I don't think I've lived enough yet. If you start it, I still won't survive. Wait until I'm dead. Boom! Chen Fan ducked behind the battlement. The wall where he had stood was blown apart. It was a pillar formed from 16 green beams. After smashing the wall, it kept going and crushed the opposite wall. Even the watchtower was caught and fell in ruins. I'm really going to die, he peeked out in despair. He looked at the 16 Mourner Fiend leaders outside. The level 4 arrow fort kept firing coldly. Huh? Just then, one Mourner Fiend leader took a bolt to the forehead and fell. 15 left, but this time it did not split. The remaining 15 Mourner Fiend leaders quickly withdrew under cover of the other Mourner Fiend. They were clearly retreating. They're running? Chen Fan froze for a moment. Then he quickly realized they had reached their split limit. Now every kill was a real kill. He immediately laughed. He stood up and shouted excitedly. Trying to run? Now you know how to run, huh? He instantly built another level 4 arrow fort on the wall. Arrowstorm was activated at all costs. It cleared the Mourner Fiend leaders and the Mourner Fiend shielding them. The 2 level 4 arrow forts began precise kills. As the Mourner Fiend leaders fled, the Mourner Fiend inside the camp did not run. They attacked the camp walls even more wildly. But Chen Fan could not care about that now. These Mourner Fiend leaders had to die. If they returned tomorrow after recovering, his camp could not take it. Boom! Boom! As the Mourner Fiend leaders fled, they raised their green lanterns in panic and fired green beams at the walls. 1, 2, 3. Under the rain of arrows, the Mourner Fiend leaders kept dwindling. Finally, the last Mourner Fiend leader was shot in the back of the head. It staggered forward uncontrollably and fell hard to the ground. Die! Chen Fan poked his head out from behind the battlement. He looked at the last Mourner Fiend leader dead near the edge of camp range. He could not help pumping his fist and shouting, "Now for these little trash mobs." However, the next moment, as the final Mourner Fiend leader died, every Mourner Fiend in the camp froze. Their lives drained away, and they fell backward, all dead. At a glance, the ruined camp, fresh from battle, was filled with Mourner Fiend corpses. No one slept that night. Chen Fan and the others guarded the ruined wall all night. They did not leave to dig out Fiendstone. There might still be a fiend tied outside. Something felt very wrong tonight. They did not repair the camp right away either. The camp was too badly damaged. It needed rebuilding. Best to wait until dawn and rebuild properly. If another fiend tide came midway, they could rebuild then. Finally dawn came. No one had slept all night.
Oh,
When endless night receded like the tide, Chen Fan finally straightened up. He took a deep breath. After breathing out last night's fear and unease, he pumped his fist and shouted, "Get to work!" Everyone already had tools ready. They shouted excitedly and rushed beyond the wall. Those digging fiendstone dug fiendstone. Those draining blood drained blood. Fiends' corpses lay everywhere. This would be a massive harvest. Wait, the endless night faded. His vision returned. Chen Fan looked outside the camp. Many mourner fiend corpses lay in the wilds. There were over 1,000 of them. Last night's fiend tide had been huge. Many mourner fiend had not even entered the camp before dying with their leader. He froze for a moment. Then he could not help laughing. His laughter grew louder and louder. He rushed through the rain beyond the wall and strode toward the mourner fiend leader's corpse. The camp's losses were forgotten. His entire camp was worth less than these fiends' corpses. Chen Fan crouched by the true mourner fiend leader's corpse. Excited, he began searching it all over. After the 16 mourner fiend died, only this mourner fiend leader still held a green lantern. The other 15 green lanterns had turned to powder. This green lantern was a rare treasure. He did not check the panel. He knew it had to be valuable. He saved it to inspect last. Then Chen Fan found a piece of fiend hide in its pocket. It felt like the fiend hide from the female fiend. There were words on it. "1,000 throats, heed my command. Lead your troops to Zhangbei Wasteland. Destroy every wall you see. Prepare the way for my arrival. At the end of the rainy season, I will go to Zhangbei Wasteland and use both cities' blood to ascend as Fiend King. On the day of my ascension, I will marry Chu Kui. Go, let darkness descend as destined. As one of my 4 great leaders, bring fear and despair to the weak ants hiding behind their walls." Chen Fan stared at the fiend hide before him. After a long expressionless silence, he looked toward Zhangbei City. So if he had not appeared, then normally this thing should have hit Zhangbei City last night. The Fiend King wanted to sacrifice Zhangbei City and Ping City to break through. His tiny camp had blocked a disaster for them. But the rainy season was not over yet. He looked at the battered camp before him, then at Limp Monkey, and the others digging fiendstone. Last night's battle had been brutal, but the gains were huge. With these resources, he could find a safe place and start over. No need to hold out here. He would discuss it with Wang Kui and the others later. As for now, hey, Chen Fan laughed. First, loot the bodies. Except the green lamp. He had gained 3 rare artifacts. First, a night pearl. Artifact, wind shelter pearl. Grade green. Effect, a key material for building a wind tower. A special defense structure, it stirs gales. Not bad. Chen Fan nodded. With this, fleshworm fiend tides would be much easier to handle, but he did not have the wind tower blueprint yet. No use for now. The next item was an array disc. Artifact, clear breeze array. Grade green. Effect, must be placed in Fiendfire. Once placed, it covers the camp in a light breeze. Slightly boosts speed. The last one looked rather unsettling. A dark red tumor, slowly pulsing. Warm and tough to the touch. Artifact, mountain carcass womb. Grade green. Effect, a rare natural treasure, born of nature. Used in alchemy, forging and arrays. If placed in Fiendfire, it can extend bone structures beneath the camp, stabilizing underground cavities. Mountain womb. Chen Fan calmly studied the panel, his eyes narrowing. This artifact had come from the Mourner Fiend. It had carried it on its body. A very good find. Based on this artifact, a thought took shape. Chen Fan tucked all the artifacts away. As he was about to check the green lantern, Limp Monkey called from behind. He turned back. Limp Monkey held a lantern, limping toward him. He said excitedly, "Young master, look at this. Good stuff. Let me see." Chen Fan took the white lantern from Limp Monkey. Artifact, Morning Lantern. Grade, white. Effect, required to upgrade an arrow tower to a level 5 cannon tower. Chen Fan paused. Then he looked up at the camp and grinned at the lanterns all over. Good stuff. There were over 1,000 morning lanterns here. Suppose each lantern sold for 100 fiendstone in the market. Worth 100,000 fiendstone. But he knew they had to be worth more. After all, an arrow tower sold for 150 fiendstone in the market. Materials to upgrade to level 5 could not cost only 100 fiendstone. Gather them up. Work hard. We are moving today. Moving? We will discuss it soon. Only then did he bend down and pick up the dim green lantern nearby. This lantern was 1 grade above ordinary morning lanterns. Artifact, Morning Lantern. Grade green. Effect, required to upgrade an arrow tower to a level 6 cannon tower. When activated by hand, it fires a powerful beam at enemies. Each activation consumes its power. After 5 uses, it shatters. Level 6 turret. Chen Fan narrowed his eyes in thought. Then he smiled. That meant he could use it 4 times for free. As long as he saved 1 use, it could still serve as upgrade material. Sir, quick, we found some chests. While clearing the field, we found these big chests outside the camp. Opened, we found a lot inside. Chen Fan stared at the chests, silent and expressionless. After a while, he took a deep breath. Looking at the distant rain, he murmured, "War profits really do taste the best." There were 5 chests in all. At a glance, 2 were packed full of fiendstone. All were clear green level 2 fiendstone. The other 3 held many fiend materials. The chests were neatly arranged. These were military supplies. They all looked like array materials. If he guessed right, the Fiend King's task for 1,000 throats. was to destroy the walls of 2 cities first, then use these fiendstone and fiend materials to set an array. Cool. Shen Fan took a deep breath before looking at Wang Kui. Tell everyone to stop what they are doing. Meeting. They found a clean spot and sat cross-legged in the wilds. A fiend-hide map lay between them. A major crisis is coming. After Chen Fan briefly explained the situation, he spoke first. The early rainy season has caused fiends to run rampant, bringing the Fiend King to the wasteland. There are 3 more high-level fiends like Thousand Throats. Once they enter the wasteland, we will be their first target. We need to relocate and avoid this crisis. If anyone has thoughts, speak up. Station Master. Jomo sat cross-legged in the wilds, wiping rain from his face. He hesitated. Finding a safe place to grow steadily would indeed be better. But although we faced a great crisis last night, we also gained a huge haul. With the loot, we can rebuild the camp and greatly strengthen it again. If we keep feeding war with war, after killing the next 3 commanders one by one, we may be able to face the Fiend King head-on. If we go elsewhere, we will never get such rich gains again. Chen Fan nodded lightly and looked at the others. That makes sense. Wealth is found in danger. Hiding from the Fiend King would be safer, but we would lose this great fortune. Shomo, your idea assumes the next 3 Fiend King commanders come one at a time. What if they come together? Wang Kui shook his head, rejecting Jomo's idea. Could the camp still hold? Last night, I kept thinking about one problem. Under the station master's lead, our camp has grown extremely fast. But its biggest flaw is having no way out. Once we meet an enemy, we have to win. If we do not, we die. But no one can win forever. We need to give the camp room for error. So last night, I kept thinking of how to solve this. I came up with a theoretical compromise. Chen Fan looked at Wang Kui in surprise. Let's hear it. Station Master, our current camp has one major weakness. Buildings like farms and warehouses can only be placed outside the walls. If enemies come, they may be destroyed. There is no helping that. Building walls is too expensive. We do not have enough fiendstone. But this camp can be scaled down. No farms, no warehouses, no ranches either. Not even watchtowers or sacrificial towers. They are all burdens. We only need 3 things. Walls, arrow towers, and fiend fire. That is enough for defense. Shumatsu gave Wang Kui a speechless look. Did you drink fake liquor or something? Why not get rid of people too? Exactly. Wang Kui nodded seriously. No people either. People are burdens too. Arrow towers can automatically attack fiends that enter the camp. When fiends invade, people can do very little. So, he picked up a branch from the ground and pointed across the fiend-hide map. If we can find a relatively safe place as our main base, we can put farms, warehouses, and other logistics buildings there. Then we build several unmanned stations in the wasteland, with only walls, arrow towers, and fiend fire to attack fiends entering those stations. This way, our Rio stays completely safe, while we do not have to leave the wasteland and lose access to enough fiendstone. Unmanned stations offer many options. We could even create noise on purpose to lure fiends into the stations. It would be like fishing, casting one net after another into a river to catch passing fiends. Chen Fan lowered his head, considering if the plan could work. It was a simple idea. Strip a station of every burden and leave only its attack function, not even people. Then it would not matter if the walls fell. It would be like a giant bear trap. Meanwhile, they would hide somewhere safe and quietly grow while avoiding threats like the Fiend King. Safe and profitable. After a moment, Chen Fan reached a decision. Alright, we are relocating. We will find a safe place and build a rear base. Tell me where we should move. Everyone fell silent. For a moment, no one could think of a safe place. How about here? Dayu, beside them, tapped a seaside spot at the north end of the Fiend-hide map and hesitated. This was my old village. It is a natural fiend fire zone. It is by the sea at the northern end of Jiangbei Wasteland, and it is not too far. We can reach it before dark. Chen Fan looked at the point on the map. Dayu had told him about that natural fiend fire zone. It was surrounded by steep mountains. Last time, fiends jumped into the village from the cliffs. However, he could first build a level 5 cannon tower and use it to carve a huge cave into a cliff. Then he could use the mountain carcass womb to keep the cave stable. That way, they only needed one wall at the cave entrance. It would greatly cut the cost of building walls. Instead of facing enemies on all sides, they would only face one front. There, they could build an absolutely safe rear base. His mind was made up. He looked up at them, paused and smiled. We will settle there. Everyone push harder. Dig out all the fiendstone. Pack up and get ready to move. We need a place to digest this huge haul. 4 hours later, at midday, no one had stopped along the way. They had no time to eat, and no time to rest. Chen Fan looked at the structure by the ruined wooden house. A 7-tier miniature tower of bluestone, about 1 meter tall. Most fiend corpses he had killed lately had been skinned, drained, and offered to this tower, but it had given no special resources. At the bottom of the tower's panel was a progress bar. 198 of 500 sacrifice points. When this sacrifice is complete, 1 green grade special resource will be obtained. Now that they were moving, this sacrificial tower could not be taken. Its unfinished progress could not be taken either. So he planned to finish the sacrifice before leaving. As fiend corpses were thrown before the tower, the bodies quickly began to melt. As if blasted apart by a fleshworm fiend up close, they became odorless slime and were absorbed by the tower. Soon, the 500 sacrifice points were complete. 500 of 2000 sacrifice points. When this sacrifice is complete, 1 yellow grade special resource will be obtained. Yellow grade. Chen Fan froze slightly. This was his first time seeing anything yellow grade. If he completed the sacrifice now, he would get 1 green grade special resource. Do it a few more times, and he could get several green grade resources. Green grade was already quite high. He did not have many green grade artifacts himself, but yellow grade was something he had never seen, and he truly wanted it. He was still short 1,500 sacrifice points. Limp Monkey and the others had already counted the fiend corpses. Even after pulling out the undigested corpses from the farms, there were only 1,820 fiend corpses left. Still short 180 sacrifice points. After thinking for a moment, Chen Fan looked at Limp Monkey beside him and ordered, "Bring me that Mourner Fiend Commander's corpse." Though he could not see a fiend's exact level, it was still one of the Fiend King's 4 commanders. Maybe it would be worth 180 sacrifice points. Soon, the Mourner Fiend Commander's corpse was brought over and thrown before the sacrificial tower. Sacrifice complete. Gained 50 sacrifice points. Chen Fan laughed aloud. He suddenly felt that splitting fiends like the Mourner Fiend were extremely lovable. He hoped to meet more Mourner Fiends in the future. Continue the sacrifice. Soon, all the fiend corpses were thrown before the tower. The progress quickly reached 1,150 points. After 3 more Mourner Fiend Commander corpses were thrown in, the sacrifice progress reached exactly 2,000 points. Gears clicked inside the sacrificial tower. A box popped out from the top. On it lay a blueprint as thin as cicada wings. Chen Fan picked up the yellow-grade blueprint. A flash of shock crossed his eyes. Then he could no longer hold back his excitement. He broke into a grin. His luck was very good. With this blueprint, he could develop his northern rear base even better. Artifact, Vehicle Workshop, Grade Yellow. Effect, Building Blueprint. Can produce multiple types of vehicles.